So you wanna make a Lego game using some big property, but you already did Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Lord of the Rings. Well, I think there's still one option that you've yet to explore. It's the series about a girl and her robotic dinosaurs. Now I know what you're all thinking, hey, isn't this a bit of a stretch? Horizon's fan base has been shrinking. It might be pretty, but there's always a catch. I've only met one person in my whole damn life who had an insatiable Horizon appetite. Everybody else doesn't care that much, but Herman Hulse doesn't really give a fuck. So here you go, world, it's Horizon again. If you got money, it's time to spend. It's got multiplayer, find a friend. Ooh, open up your mouth, girl, let me pour some Horizon in. It's sweet like honey, so give us all your money. Oh wait, oh fuck, no one's buying the game. I thought Horizon was as cool as Star Wars. I guess it turns out it's just kinda lame. Ooh, holy crap, oh no, why doesn't anybody care? Horizon is just as cool as all those other Lego games. Even though the evidence makes it seem like it's irrelevant, Lego Horizon flopped. I'm not sure why they bothered trying. All of its fans must have been lying. Lego Horizon flopped, Horizon. Guess Sony is gonna have to try again. Skeep-a-doop-bop-boop, deep-a-deep-a-doo-da, Robodino skip-bop, skip-bop, deep-a-deep-a-deep-a-boo-bop, going till the doo-da-beep-bop-a-noo-ta. Horizon should never had a Lego game. Whoever greenlit that must have been fucking insane. Lego Horizon flopped. I'm not sure why they bothered trying. All of its fans must have been lying. Lego Horizon flopped, Horizon. Guess Sony is gonna have to try again. Sorry Herman Hulse, guess you didn't make a new Star Wars after all. Sorry Herman Hulse, just another day of ya dropping the ball.
Imagine a hero shooter where the hero never showed.
That's most definitely what's up.
Imagine a game with a player base that just refused to grow. A 5v5 hero shooter with gameplay that's just okay, and characters that remind me of Tupperware and white bread. No, I'm not talking about Overwatch. Please stop bringing up Overwatch. This game is not Overwatch. It's actually something else. Imagine a game with a story that no one watches. A game that costs $40 that Sony totally botches. It has all my favorite characters, like Lemmy, Dawn, and Craig. At least, I think that's what their names are. I never bothered to check. Concord like the grave, your legacy is safe. As a game that no one played, and a price that no one paid. Boop-a-doop-ba, deep-a-doop-da, scoop-a-boop-ba, beep-beep-beep-beep-beep, phlegm. Concord was about as good as accidentally peeing on your own leg. Concord, we're here to lay you to rest. We know you tried your best. You copied so much cool stuff just to turn out lame in the end. I'll never forget my favorite moments, like when Hot Sauce Guy jumped. Remember when he jumped? That was really cool. A rat just ran by on my desk, and even the rat didn't want to play Concord, even though I blessed him with the chance. The $40 he could afford, but the rat just stared on in a trance. Rat, 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 rat. Concord's dead. Rat. rat. Concord's dead. The Costco guys made more money than you. They were just on Jimmy Fallon too. Imagine Lennox being on Jimmy Fallon, because I literally can't. The rat on my desk is eating all my Cheerios and grapes. And also Concord is dead. Concord like the grave. Your legacy is safe as a game that no one played, and a price that no one paid. Rat-a-tat-a-beep-a-dap. Skim, milk, the rat fleet, doo-da, doo-da. A guy said he really liked it, and then a bunch of rats ate his face. That's the sound he made when Concord passed away. I wish things turned out different, but either way I'm getting paid. Concord's dead, Concord's dead. And boy is my face red. When the game came out everybody overslept. Concord's dead, Concord's dead. Holy crap, Lois, Concord's dead. When the game out people played everything else instead.
Indeed they did. Indeed they did. They played something else and didn't bother with none of that Concord mess. How is everybody doing? How are we? How are we today? I need that song. Yeah, we all do. We all need a little bit of Concord in our lives. Now we can't get it with the game, so we've got to get it through, parodic songs created by an AI. That's the key. That's the key. New Last of Us news dropped. Yeah, I have the article thing pulled up. It's not much to talk about, which means we should be able to turn it into like a 20-minute video, probably. In true YouTube tradition. Oh, man. Yeah, more people heard this song than played Concord. Unironically, yeah, dude. We have the play count on like the Suno whatever website, and there's more people that have listened to that song than like played Concord on launch day, which is pretty funny. It's a little funny. How does it feel to be one of the maybe 3,000 people that played Concord? Dude, special. It feels special. And more than anything, it's also like I still have it installed on my PlayStation. Of course you can't play it, but I do still have it installed. And so I'm like, should I ever delete it, or should I keep it there forever? Forever, It literally is doing nothing but hoarding space on my SSD, but it feels weird to delete it, because you can never re-download it. You can never get it again. Honestly, I'm surprised they haven't forced you to delete it. Doesn't it seem like something they would do? They would like force it off your console, but maybe they can't do that for some reason. Cesar, thank you for the membership. Thank you. Welcome everybody. Arik Array, thank you for also, or Arik Ari, thank you for the re-upping of your membership as well. Thank you guys. Is it on your main SSD? I don't actually know. I could check. Copy it to an external drive. Yeah. If it would let you. I'm kind of worried to touch it at all, Did you get a refund? If not, they can't delete it. I'm pretty sure, because I think they forced the refunds to everybody. So I'm sure I did. I must have. Actually, I vaguely remember checking on stream and seeing that I got it. So I think we did. Yeah. That's like keeping a photo of a bad girlfriend you never had. It is kind of like that. It's like, I don't want to close this chapter. I don't want to let go. I can't quit on Concord. I can't do it. Oh man. You should know that, Luke. I probably, yeah. It's like when Flappy Bird got taken off the App Store. Yeah, but at least you could still play Flappy Bird, right? Or like, same with PT. People still sell like base PS4s with PT installed on it for like $1,000, $2,000. It's crazy, but people still do that. Difference is with Concord, you can't play it even if you have it downloaded. So imagine Luke being the only dude without his refund. It would be, honestly, Master, I wouldn't blame them, and it would be really funny if they did refund everybody except Luke Stevens for all those damn videos he made. That would be funny. I wouldn't even be that upset. I'd be like, yeah, fair. Fair enough. Yeah. Yep. I get it. Oh, man. Neil Druckmann comments. I guess we can talk about that first and foremost real quick. New segment. Also, just so everybody knows, I'm going to set the text-to-speech limit to, we'll set it to like 20. That way, if you really, really want to interrupt the segment and be in the YouTube video, you can do that, but it's going to cost you. Otherwise, we'll just set it to 20. Okay. Before we do that, iBidet, thank you for the 2. Bro, make a stock market, general market talk page. We investigated it. We looked at it. It's just a lot of headache. And then also there's a ton of like legal crap you have to do, because the second you start talking about stocks and investment stuff, you have to like have 15,000 disclosures of like, this is my personal opinion. Don't take my advice. Just consider it and make your own financial decisions. It turns into a massive headache. So I've been hesitant, but I think it would be interesting. I think it would be interesting. I don't know. I end up rambling about it randomly. Why Twitch stream low quality? I don't know. Twitch on my end says it's receiving full quality and everything. Maybe try refreshing. I don't know. Okay, let's talk about this first, because this is breaking news. A new article posted at 9 a.m. By Variety, who have allegedly a variety of content. They posted this: making The Last of Us Season 2, casting Abby, video game changes, and why the creators are at peace with telling a different version of the story. Buckling in, here we go. I have been intrigued with some of the rumors and stuff we've heard about Season 2. Season 1, of course, like fudged the timelines a little bit. They might add a little bit of stuff here, take away stuff over here. Was it episode 3? It was like episode 3 or 5 that they just, it was with Bill, and they just wrote a whole new story, and tweaked a ton of stuff with it. And I thought it worked really well, but they definitely are willing to fudge the timeline a bit, fudge the story a bit to rework it for television, which, to be clear, I'm okay with. Okay? I know some people are going to be like, oh no, you got to be a purist. I'm okay, because video games are a totally different medium than TV, which is why I love video games, to be fair. But it means that you can't tell stories the same way on TV as you could in a video game. In a video game, they'll do stuff like having, an hour's worth of puzzles that you're doing with an NPC, and it's designed to try and get you to bond with the NPC with little bits of dialogue that are playing back and forth. It's also to pad gameplay time, but it's also like building a relationship with that character passively, which is something video games can do that almost no other medium can do, is to get you to bond with somebody without you realizing that you're bonding with them through gameplay. In TV, they have to get you to bond with that character in about 20 minutes of you just watching something. And that's a much taller order. So it's much more difficult, I think, to try and take a video game into a TV show than a TV show into a video game, for example, in my opinion. So they're going to have to fudge some stuff, because frankly, in my opinion, I think some of the ways that they set up The Last of Us Part 2 for the video game wouldn't translate to a TV show very well. One of the biggest and most obvious things I'm curious about is, like, are they going to do the same split? So are they going to do like Ellie for half the season and then Abby for the second half, and then have them together for the finale? I don't know if it's been confirmed. We'll see when they describe this. I don't think it's confirmed, at least, that Season 2 will just be the second game. I think that there's a strong possibility Season 2 only goes through like half of the second game or something. So we'll see. But let's see what they say. Let's read through it. Let's check it out. Okay. Let's check it out. Let me just turn that off because I don't need two duplicates of it. On July 3rd, 2019, Neil Druckmann first said those fateful words to Craig Mazin inside Santa Monica offices of Naughty Dog, the developer behind the 2013 blockbuster Last of Us game. As the game's writer and creative director, Druckmann was the lead architect of its astonishing story and grief and trauma amid a zombie apocalypse. Mazin, whose gripping limited series Chernobyl had just concluded on HBO, revered the game and had come to Naughty Dog to persuade Druckmann to adapt it for television with him. But when Druckmann picked up a PlayStation controller during that first meeting, it wasn't so he and Mazin could discuss one of the game's fight sequences involving marauding hordes of infected, nor was it to watch one of the many poignant scenes featuring its two protagonists, Joel, a hard-hearted smuggler, and Ellie, a headstrong teenager immune to the fungal pandemic that decimated the planet. Instead, Druckmann, in a display of immediate trust, showed Mazin a scene between Joel and Ellie from the game's top secret sequel, The Last of Us Part 2. Nearly a year before it would be made available to the public. It's just the golf scene, wasn't it? It's like, yeah, you sure you still want to do the show? Are you sure? You sure? Because this is what you're getting into. Buckle up, buckaroo. As it turned out, Druckmann didn't need any convincing about doing a show. Within a week, they were pitching the first season of The Last of Us to HBO. Their easy rapport is apparent even as Mazin and Druckmann sit in one of Naughty Dog's austere conference rooms, part of what Mazin affectionately calls this concrete palace, to discuss the show's second season ahead of their South by Southwest panel with the cast. Season 2 will premiere on April 13th, to be clear. Mazin brags that he got to play part 2 himself as they wrote season 1. It was awesome, one of the countless examples of the bond they cultivated in those early months. I will say initially, like, the idea that it's somewhat surprising, because this kind of implies it's surprising that Neil was so immediately into the idea of The Last of Us, like on HBO. To me, it's kind of like, no duh. Like, one of the complaints some people have about The Last of Us and Naughty Dog games is that they kind of want to be movies, but because they're so cinematic and so high in production quality that they kind of come off as movies that are also video games, you know? So to me, it's not surprising at all that he really loved the idea of doing an HBO show. To him, I'm sure that was a dream come true. So I'm sure he's like all into it. That bond has bloomed into a creative partnership that has redefined what's possible for video game adaptations, a genre formerly as synonymous with prestige drama as fast food is with fine dining. This is true. I mean, it's something for us to keep in mind nowadays because we're kind of used to it. But back in the day, video games were seen as like an extension of children's toys, okay? It's still something we even see today to a certain extent, where the people they promote into executive positions within like Warner Brothers games or EA or Take-Two, a lot of those executives are former like toy company executives. I forgot which company it was exactly, but one of the like founding and most important people for Xbox during the Xbox One era had a background with like Hasbro, because the approach and attitude was always video games are basically just toys for children. And that was the whole attitude. That's how they looked at it. And so nowadays we think of video games as being much more mainstream, having much broader cultural influence and impact, but they didn't start that way. I mean, it really, really didn't start that way. I remember watching I wonder if I can find it real quick, an interview with Todd Howard. Was it? Maybe it was making a Fallout 3. Let's see. I'm going to try to look up the transcript. It was specifically, he was talking about E3. No, it was specifically him talking about how back in the day they were back like at E3, but they were in a tent outside, like in the parking lot. And it was the same tent that they put up all of the porn. So like video games were seen as like the secondary thing you put outside next to all the porn and stuff that you can't keep indoors. Because like, again, just 20 years ago, video games were seen as like a very niche, kind of silly, stupid thing. Was it the Fallout 4 reveal? You're saying Fallout 4? Fallout 4. I don't think he would have said it on stage. Maybe he did. But somebody else knows what I'm talking about. Somebody else knows what I'm talking about. So you're saying it's like in here. Tent. Because I think it was something like we were in the tent outside. Yeah, no, you're totally right. You're totally right. Okay, here. This is what I was talking about. Thank you. Who got that right? Who got that? Was it Rabid Wolf? Yeah, Rabid Wolf. Shout out Rabid Wolf for knowing exactly what I was talking about. Look at this, okay? I wasn't making it up, okay? Real talk. Look here, look, listen. There we go. He's so young.
This is great. Look at this. You all came. This is amazing. I need to let me take this in. Holy crap. You know, when I first started at Bethesda 21 years ago, yes, believe it or not, there was no E3. There was none of this. Remember that we had CES in Vegas, and the video games weren't even in.
Oh, is that CES, not E3? It was pre-E3. So at CES.
There was none of this. Remember that we had CES in Vegas, and the video games weren't even in the main building. They were in like an ancillary tent with the porn. It's not, I'm not kidding.
That's how they used to be viewed, man. Video games back in the day were not taken seriously at all. And so now seeing like HBO adaptations that are winning tons of awards and stuff based on video games is impressive. Because like even The Witcher, I mean, imagine if the Witcher Netflix show ended up like actually continuing to like be good and stuff. But like even The Witcher, if you were pointing to that, it's like, well, it's based on books and the games were based on the books, but the show is kind of based on the books and not the games. And so it's kind of roundabout. But with this, it's like literally a show based on a video game, and that's it. It's crazy. It's crazy. Continuing on. On The Last of Us, Mazin and Druckmann struck a rare balance between visceral action and nuanced storytelling that enthralled gamers and civilians alike. While Joel and Ellie's odyssey through a landscape ravaged by a global pathogen hit audiences right where they'd been living for the past 3 years, after its January 2023 premiere, The Last of Us joined Game of Thrones and Squid Game as one of the few hugely popular series that are also critical and award season darlings. It averaged nearly 32 million viewers across the first 90 days across all HBO platforms and garnered 24 Emmy nominations for its first season, including for drama, actor for Pedro Pascal and actress Bella Ramsey, and wins for guest actors such as Nick Offerman and Storm Reed. But Mazin and Druckmann knew that making season 2 would be a far more daunting endeavor. Along with the usual pressures of following an overnight smash, part 2 upends fundamental things fans loved about the first game. It alienates Joel and Ellie from each other, pushes the story to jaw-dropping extremes, and forces players to empathize with by playing as the game's central antagonist, Abby, who will be played by dope-sick Emmy nominee Caitlin Dever. While Part 2 was lauded as one of the best games ever made when it debuted in June of 2020, its provocations also caused a cascade of online fan fury that still percolates. On top of all of that, Part 2 is such a colossal experience, taking almost twice as long to complete as Part 1, that adapting it would necessitate telling the story over multiple seasons. Oh, boom. Okay, there you go. That pretty much confirms it. Okay, so they're doing multiple seasons. Maybe they've talked about that before. I just haven't seen it. But okay, part 2, multiple seasons. How do they break it up? I don't know. What's your predictions? What's your predictions for how they break it up? Do they break it up like literally when like Abby comes to the theater, basically the midpoint of the game, and then season 3 is just Abby? I don't know how that works though. I don't know how that works. Because the danger with all this, and it's the danger like literally Naughty Dog ran into with The Last of Us Part 2, is that people will play the game. They will get to the Abby part and people will put down the controller and walk away. A friend of mine did that. Played The Last of Us Part 2, got to the part where it prompted him to start playing as Abby, and he's like, no, I'm good. And walked away. And like, didn't touch it again. And I mean, it says a lot about the bond that was created between players and Joel, for example, that they have such a strong bond and allegiance to that character. The idea of playing as his killer is just not interesting. I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see where they go with it. Because my fear would just be if they try to split it like the game halfway through, and then season 3 is just following Abby. I'm not sure that works. Because it'll feel like a different show, I mean, or a spin-off show, basically. So I think you have to keep some of the main cast there, and you got to shake it up a little bit more. But I'm not sure. What kind of idiot stops playing a game they paid for because they're too upset about their favorite character dying? Somebody that bought it before it launched and was like, I'm going to play this. I'm going to give it a shot. And then they got halfway through it and they're like, I'm good. You know, I'm not saying it was the most rational decision they made, but it was one they made. I left the game after he tried to tell me that Joel was wrong with saving Ellie in the first game. I mean, I get what you mean. I'm not sure if they said he was wrong for saving her. They just said, like, can we acknowledge that what he did was very selfish and literally not even something that Ellie wanted him to do? Which I think jives with the first game's writing as well. That didn't seem that out of pocket for me. But like the thing with The Last of Us Part 2 that frustrated a lot of people is that like everybody knew what they were doing. Everybody knows they get the premise. Like, oh, it's all about perspective. If you look at it from this perspective, Joel's the bad guy. And if you look at it from this perspective, Abby's crew are the bad guys. But it's all about perspective and forming a rainbow. And I do think that is a valid story to tell. And I think that's an interesting story to tell. And I think The Last of Us Part 2 in terms of like gameplay and technology and all these other aspects is a masterpiece in many ways. But I still insist The Last of Us's idea, the story, the theme could have been way, way better executed and way more, I think, appreciated if it were with different characters. I think if it was an original IP or something and it was just totally fresh and different and people didn't have the attachment to Joel that they started with, I think they could have achieved the same goal without all the drama of like, how dare you kill Joel? You know, I think that they could have had more success with actually communicating what they were trying to communicate with a different IP, because I mean, quite obviously it stirred up drama that's still present today. But still, Amadeus, I think you've touched on this, Luke, but the entire thing about The Last of Us Part 2 is that if you buy the Joel made a questionable decision, it works. If you don't agree, it simply doesn't work as a concept. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think you're right. Quite obviously, the whole premise of the game is that like, hey, Joel went in and killed this doctor that he didn't need to kill, which is sort of like a miniature allegory of the entire game. Joel killed a lot of people he probably didn't need to kill, but it was to protect the person he cared about and loved. And then it's like, flip that around. So Joel is killing all these people and doing these bad things for somebody that he cares about. But if you're looking at it from the outside, it just looks like he's killing tons of people or that he doesn't care about the greater good. Which is also why I think one of the other premises that The Last of Us Part 2 hinges on is the idea that the Fireflies were actually going to create a cure, a vaccine or whatever it would have been for the whatever the hell it's called. Why am I blanking on it now? Something fungus. Cordyceps fungus. So I think if you buy that they were about to actually make the cure, and then Joel basically damns humanity to save one person, then the premise of the second game really clicks and makes sense. The problem is, I think when they wrote the first game, they weren't planning on that. They wanted to make it a little bit more ambiguous. So the fireflies come off as just like total idiots, and it wasn't clear based on some of the vocal recordings if they were actually going to be successful in creating a cure, in which case it's like, yeah, so Joel didn't want to risk losing the only person he cared about to like maybe find a cure. And so they grade it out a little bit. And I'm guessing for season 2, they make it way more clear. They're like, oh no, the fireflies were going to make a cure. They can do it. They've just been waiting for somebody like Ellie, and now they can do it. I think that's the thing they're going to really shift, is they're going to make it locked down very clear. So yeah, I think that's the key. Moving on, where was I? Okay, none of that fazed Mazin. If anything, it made him more eager to get to work. Quote, one of the notes that I resent most is, we loved this thing. More of it, please, he says. No, you loved it because that's the right amount of it. When you do more, what makes it special starts to dissipate. It becomes comfort food. And there's one thing about The Last of Us. If there's one thing about The Last of Us, it is not comfortable. I would agree. The Last of Us as a franchise, then also The Last of Us Part 2 especially, I don't think they're fun. And this is something Neil Druckmann's talked about, where he's like, yeah, I don't know if our games are fun. But I don't think they need to be. And I think that is true. Not all video games need to be fun, whatever that is. When I think of fun, I think of like, ooh, this is engaging and I have a smile on my face, you know? The Last of Us Part 2 is kind of like a marathon of misery, I think is what I've called it before. It is tough to play. It is emotionally draining. By the time it's over, you're like, thank God, Howard, this is over. And that's why I do not blame people if they're like, I can't stand it and it's miserable. I don't blame you. Like Monster Hunter, I think that's fun. Split Fiction, I think is fun. It Takes Two, I think is fun. Pirate Yakuza, yeah, that's fun. GTA can be really fun. The Last of Us Part 2 and like some of these more narrative games are much less about fun and they're more about the story. And it's true of other things like movies. Like, would anybody say that like Schindler's List is fun? I hope not. If you think that movie's fun, I've got questions. But that's not what it's not trying to be fun. You know, that's not what it's doing. It shouldn't be seen as fun. It's trying to do something else, tell a broader story that's more impactful. So I think the dismissal of a video game because it's not fun kind of misses the point of what it's trying to do, you know? Uncharted was fun too. Yeah, I think Uncharted's fun. It's just so much of it is about where you are or what you're trying to do. And I think that's true of a lot of games. I think you got to be very careful not to critique or bash a game for not being what you very specifically wanted it to be. You know? Like if you want, what would be a good example of this? Well, maybe like Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
That's a game that is not trying to be AC1. You know, it's not trying to be a social stealth game. It's trying to be like a smash and grab Viking simulator with some light RPG stuff. Like that's what it's trying to be. And my point is, like, even when you review it and look at it based on that, what they were trying to do, I still think it's not very good at that. Which is why I've called it a travesty of open world design. Like, I think even as what it's trying to be, it wasn't successful. But to dismiss that game because of the fact it's not the stealth game, or like it has bad stealth. Like, yeah, well, I mean, clearly they didn't want there to be stealth. Like it was very low on the priority list. They weren't trying to do that. So I think you got to analyze the game and critique it based on what it's trying to be. And The Last of Us, I certainly agree, is not comfortable. I don't think it's fun. That doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but I think that changes the lens through which you have to look at it, in my opinion. Continuing on, Druckmann leans forward, turning a thought around in his head. I hope this doesn't sound arrogant, he says, but I think you have to have a certain level of success to have confidence to do what we're doing, both in the game and in the show, because on paper it looks so risky. But this is where I love working with Craig, because he thinks like me. Sometimes you have a feeling the story has to be this and only this. You just have to commit. Mazin turns to Druckmann. If there's one thing that you and I share, we have no problem going all in. Sometimes you just have to move all your narrative chips into the middle and say, F it, we're going to do it. We'll do it live. During the 6-month production on season 2, largely in British Columbia, Mazin regularly checked in with Ramsey, Bella Ramsey, who plays Ellie, to ensure the then 20-year-old was physically okay enough following a day of intense stunt sequences. I feel like if Bella broke her leg in the middle of the day, she wouldn't tell me until the next day. I also know that there's nothing I could write that she would say, oh, I'm scared to do that. When I relay Mazin's observations to Ramsey, who uses both she, her, and they, them pronouns, they break into a smile, but Mazin's notion that absolutely nothing would rattle them is, Ramsey says, only half accurate. Quote, I'm scared of some of the bigger emotional scenes, leaving not satisfied with my performance, Ramsey says, to cope before the really dark scenes. I try to make myself as light and energetic as possible for what Ramsey calls, quote unquote, the darkest scene in this season. For example, they listen to, on loop to the Buckwheat Boys classic Peanut Butter Jelly Time. That is a choice. I was on the floor, my eyes absolutely burning with these menthol tears, and I'm just saying, peanut butter jelly, peanut. Okay, you'll probably be able to tell which one that is when you watch it. That's a newer technique. I'm not. I don't. I don't really know what to say. The menthol tear thing, I will say, I've done a lot of like I did acting classes all through college. I performed in like plays and musicals and stuff. I've had the pleasure of working with some very talented actors here in Colorado, some of which have like retired from New York, came back. My favorite guy I ever got to work with, Jonathan Farwell, he was actually on Star Trek back in the day. We did a play together called On Golden Pond. It was a great time. I've worked with some amazing actors and actresses. It's a great time. The menthol thing is widely regarded as like a cheat because it kind of is. You basically like, they have these like menthol sticks, and you like rub it on the underside of your eye and it makes your eyes water so that it looks like you're crying and the tears come. I think that's what they're like, what Bella's referring to. And it's funny because like even in smaller productions and theaters, using those types of things to generate tears is seen as like cheating and like you're a hack basically, because it's like those aren't real tears. Those aren't real tears. It's like if you took onions and you rubbed them all over your eyes and then your eyes are watering and it's like, I'm so sad. You know, that's basically what's happening here. So it's just funny to hear that they're using menthol on the set of The Last of Us Part 2. But anyway, that's just a separate issue, which it's funny because like even in small theaters that I've worked in, it's viewed as like, oh, you need menthol to like get tears flowing. Oh, okay. I just thought you were like serious about that. Oh, about okay. Like actors are really, really bitchy about it. Okay, it's just funny. Where was I? Even though anyone who's played part 2 or just read its Wikipedia page knows which scene Ramsey is likely talking about, and this is one thing I will give credit for. I'm sure if you have to be sobbing on the floor for like 4.5, 5 hours while they film you nonstop from 5 different angles, I'm sure it does get a little tiring, and maybe you do need a little bit of like something to help the tears flow, or at least make it look like you're crying. But yeah, I don't know. Crying on command is hard. It is, but that's why actors and actresses are so scary, dude. This is a class of people that are largely able to make themselves cry and sob on cue in the split of a second. if that doesn't horrify you, I don't know what will. Like, that's terrifying that somebody could do that, could swing to that other emotion. And the people who are good at it, you know, it's believable. It's like, oh my God, think of depressing stuff and you'll nail it. That's the thing, Lilu. Some actors and actresses have to do that. Like, they have to go to a mental space. They remember when their dog died when they were a kid. They remember this or that. Yeah, they see their gas bill and they cry. Others can just do it. One girl who was in an acting class with me in college, she could just, like, in an instant, sobbing. It was like a muscle control thing. She could just contort her face in the right way to get the tears flowing, and it was totally believable. But she didn't have to, like, go anywhere. She just had the control of whatever that is to get there instantly. And I was like, imagine trying to have a conversation with that person, and they just, because, like, they know that they can turn it on. And so, like, when they really want something, they can just, like, manipulate you like that and just immediately start sobbing. It's like in a TV show where they're just like, thanks. And then they just continue on their day. There are people who can do that, and it's scary. Okay. Anyway. This is good luck, Jacob, with this stream clip. Keep it all in. You know what? Don't cut it. We're keeping it all. We'll do it live. Bryan Cranston pictured his daughter dying to film a scene in Breaking Bad. I mean, that's hardcore. And it's probably because he's not a psychopath. I think some actors and actresses are just straight up psychopaths, which is why they can just go crazy. Anyway, there are things where we don't have the element of surprise, perhaps the way the games did. I mean, unfortunately, the games leaked, which kind of removed the element of surprise. But I have thought about that. Like, what would The Last of Us Part 2 have been like if it hadn't leaked? If all that, like, all that drama, if all that stuff had not leaked, would it have changed the discourse of the game at all? Or would it have just ended up being the exact same, but just delayed by a week? And I'm honestly not sure. I'm not sure. Because part of the leaks included information that was just false. It was just false. It was like, for example, they said that Abby was trans and that they had put a trans character in the game to kill Joel and then force you to play as that character and show you that the character was actually the good guy all along. But that's like, they sort of like try to imply that maybe Abby was right all along, but like not. Abby's not trans. Like, she's just not. And so that riled up a certain type of person, let's just say. But obviously, like, that was not true. And if you played the game, you know that's not true. But even now, I have people in the comment section of videos and stuff, whenever we talked about The Last of Us Part 2, that bring that up and try to say that, like, Abby was trans, and they just don't know because they remember the initial leak and they never played the game, and that's it, you know? So I think it's interesting to ponder what could have happened or how things might have been different if the leaks hadn't happened. But yeah, apparently the leaks, I think they said in that making of The Last of Us Part 2 documentary, they said that the leaks came from like a disgruntled fan who got access to their servers and stuff through the back end and were leaking stuff to try and force them to release it. Because if you don't remember, this is a throwback. The Last of Us Part 2 was supposed to launch like right as COVID broke out, but they ended up actually delaying it indefinitely during that period because they didn't know, like, is this whole thing going to be over in a month? Is it over in 6 months, a year? What are we going to do? So The Last of Us Part 2 was basically done, but they just delayed it indefinitely and there was no release date given, which is very rare. I mean, to see a video game that's like months away from launch or even a month away from launch, however close it was when they delayed it, and then to just hear, yeah, it's postponed indefinitely. That's very, very, very rare. I can't think of another time a game has just been postponed indefinitely. But I mean, we have gotten delays that go from a specific date to sometime in the future, you know. But when the leaks hit, apparently, you know, what Neil said in that documentary was they found the person that did it, and that person was trying to force them to release the game by leaking stuff. That's at least what they had confessed to. I don't know. It's crazy. Maybe not the most well-adjusted person to do that type of thing, to break into a company's servers and then leak it to try and get them to put out a video game, but whatever. A lot of people who played the first game understood that Joel's daughter was going to die very quickly in the first episode. Those people weren't surprised. They felt it because it's the journey. That's true. That's true. And I do think that there are going to be a lot of people who watch the second season of the show, or third season, whatever, who don't know that Joel's, like, they don't know Joel's fate. And it probably will come as a surprise. So, of course, like, it could get leaked, or not leaked, spoiled for them online. But, you know, I do think that there's the potential for surprises still. But anyway, even if the showrunners stayed faithful to the second game's signature twist, they also still introduce some significant changes. Variety can report exclusively, here we go, that ubiquitous character actor Joe Pantoliano will play Eugene, a Part 2 character who players only hear about in the game when Ellie and her friend Dina, played by Isabel Merced, I don't know, find his abandoned cannabis den. Similar to Season 1's beloved Bill and Frank's standalone episode, Mazin saw the foregrounding of Eugene as another chance to expand the story's scope beyond the game. Who is this? Do I know this guy? Oh. So he's in the Matrix and he's going to play like the guy that was growing a bunch of weed. Okay. There you go. I mean, doesn't really surprise me. One of the other things I'm curious, they have a section of The Last of Us Part 2 that was cut where we actually get to meet Joel's girlfriend, because he had a girlfriend that was written into it, but she lived outside of Jackson. And eventually the idea was that Joel and Ellie are going to meet her and like just interact with her during one of those like flashback sequences, and that she was going to get bitten during like a raid or something, or I don't know, an uptick in activity with infected. And then Ellie would be sent outside. Joel would stay inside with his girlfriend, and you would hear a gunshot, and then Joel just walks out after, you know, his girlfriend's been bitten and infected. So the question is, like, did Joel do it? Did she do it? Did they just say goodbye? Like, how did that work? We don't know. But they cut it because they felt like it kind of killed. It introduced another variable, which was the secondary character that you only got to see a little bit. And so they ended up cutting it from The Last of Us Part 2, but they might bring that back during the show. Especially if they're going to be like, hey, we got 3 seasons for Part 2. Let's throw in a ton of extra stuff. I mean, they could fill it out with that. They could have an entire episode of just Joel and his girlfriend, for all we know. Druckmann loved the idea. I get excited when I see these opportunities. I'm like, ooh, I don't know Eugene that well. The story we told in the game was somewhat superficial. The way this character comes in really gets to the heart of Joel and Ellie and their relationship. 6 years and 1 real-life pandemic later, Mazin still marvels at how willing, even eager, Druckmann has been to deconstruct a story he's devoted so much of himself to bringing to life. You are unique in this way, and I'm deeply grateful for it, Mazin said to Druckmann before turning back to me. He understands the value of invention, reinterpretation, addition, change. Then to Druckmann, you always say you want to deliver whatever will make the best show. Druckmann shrugs. I enjoy a good brainstorm. Do you think this takes away from his efforts within Naughty Dog? Because, I mean, he spent a lot of time working on this. He's even directed episodes and stuff. So do you think it takes away from, like, his ability to work on and supervise their next game? Remember Bruce Straley? Yeah, Bruce... He was like the guy that ran all the gameplay stuff for Uncharted 4. And after Uncharted 4, he was like, I am so freaking burnt out. He's like, I am miserable, and left. What oh, crap, what's the I can never remember the name of it. Intergalactic. That's the thing.
Thank you.
I mean, this is allegedly like also a narrative game. I don't know. It feels very like knockoff Guardians of the Galaxy, but we'll see. Oh, we're gonna get copyright struck for that. I don't know, man. I don't know. It does make me wonder if all this work that he's doing on this stuff, if it interferes with the other stuff that they're trying to do. Because, I mean, he only has so much time, and he's the head honcho. I mean, obviously Naughty Dog's a big company and a very capable studio, but it does make you wonder. But who knows? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe Neil not being there much ends up helping, for all we know. The men are a textbook study in contrast, where Mazin 53 is voluble, demonstrative, and unabashedly neurotic. Druckmann 46 can be sphinx-like in his measured calm, but they share an abiding confidence in their own storytelling instincts and each other's, like casting Catherine O'Hara as Joel's therapist in Jackson, Wyoming community, where in the Jackson Wyoming community, where Joel and Ellie have lived for 5 years since the events of The Last of Us season 1 finale. Something Mazin has wanted to do from the start. There was a scene early in season 1 where Joel met with a therapist in the QZ in Boston, Pascal says via email. I found it a beautiful way into the character and the walls that are guarding his traumas and losses. The scene was ultimately cut before Pascal got to shoot it. And he said, quote, and he was like, that's half the reason I'm here, Mazin recalls. But the showrunner always intended to return to the idea for season 2. Therapy is a fantastic mirror to say not just who are you really, or what are you really thinking, but what people are refusing to talk about. This is also one of those things that you kind of can do in a show. If you did it in a video game, it would feel really weird having a character like Joel sit for a therapy session. It would be like, what are we doing? But it's because, like, again, you have to think of how, if you're a writer and you're writing a game versus a show, how do we get into the mind of Joel? How do we tell the audience what Joel's thinking? And you can just have them sit down next to a therapist and the therapist says, what are you thinking? And then they read off what they're thinking. Or you can try something a little bit more dynamic, and maybe you explore a level and then Joel opens up and is kind of talking to himself about what he's thinking. Or maybe he goes on a walk with his dog and he talks to his dog about his frustrations and emotions, or his horse or whatever. Even in like Red Dead Redemption 2, you have sequences where Arthur is talking to his horse. You know, he might make an offhand comment about how Dutch is pissing him off to his horse. But that's a little thing that you can do to just give the audience a little glimpse at how they're thinking and what's going on. So I do think having a sequence with like a therapist, especially Catherine O'Hara, is fantastic. She's hilarious. I think that could be really interesting to see how that plays out. Not sure. Let's see. They also embrace the deep estrangement between Joel and Ellie that opens part 2, a divide that Pascal says was painful to experience. While Bella and I are forever joined, to not have them near me for every part of season 2 felt like a cruel separation. Good for my codependent nature, bad for my heart. It felt like Ellie maturing and growing up, Ramsey says of the split. Me and Pedro were with each other literally through everything all the time the whole first season. This season was much more of an isolated one for Ellie. It was a lonelier experience, but I don't say that in a negative way. It's only when I bring up the character of Abby that Mazin and Druckmann evince any apprehension about the changes they've made between the game and the show. The character is much more muscular in part 2 than Deaver is in season 2, with the violence markedly cut down from the game. The showrunners say the need for Abby to be so imposing wasn't as critical. So this is something that they've talked about a few times. Obviously, like, this does not match the Abby in the game, who is like roided out Brock Lesnar. I do want to say, people who were like, Abby's physique totally unrealistic. Have you seen Brock Lesnar's daughter? She actually goes to my alma mater. She goes to CSU. So she's like not that far away, like a 5-10 minute drive away. But like his daughter is a tank. People joke that it's just Brock Lesnar in a wig, but I mean, you see Brock Lesnar and then you see his daughter. It's like, oh yeah, it makes sense. You know, some Viking genetics for sure. But the point is, like, this is not what you see in The Last of Us Part 2. Like, this physique is much more in line with what you would expect from Abby in the game. Just, you know, shredded. Not even shredded, because I think shredded has to do with, like, how toned you are and conditioned you are. More, what's the term if you're just big? Just hulking? I don't know. Anyway, it's literally not important, to be fair. But they've intentionally gone with like this more normal physique for Abby. And they say it's not as important. What Neil has said is that in the game, it was important that Abby have the bigger physique because Abby needed to play differently than Ellie, needed to be much more melee focused, much more violent and bulky, beefy, swole. Yeah, maybe swole is what I'm thinking. Anyway. So they said that they didn't need to do that with the show because in the show, they don't have to give the player a controller and have them bash zombies over the head with a hammer, or beloved characters with a base or with a golf club. And so they didn't really need to do that as much, because they could rely more on like weapons, like guns and things, which maybe are more practical given the situation. But I do think it's going to potentially change how they frame things, because I mean, Caitlin Dever seems like a fairly petite individual, and Pedro is not a petite individual. It kind of made sense with Abby in the game beating him with a golf club, because it's like, yeah, seems like the weapon of choice for a swole individual like Abby. But with Caitlin Dever's version of Abby, I'm really curious if they change the golf club bit. They might change it to just like a katana or something, you know? Imagine if that cabin that they end up in was owned in the show. They change it so it's owned by like some like weeb crazed anime fan, and it's just like he's got all sorts of swords and things on the walls. She goes and takes out a katana. Joel, your time has come, dude. I 10 out of 10. I'd be here for that. But we'll see. They say that they've changed it because it wasn't needed. I also think just practically it's because there's just not that many roided out actresses that could do this part in this age range. Like they could have gone to maybe WWE and found somebody who's just like, yeah, I'm Abby. Like they could have done that. Maybe hired Batista or something, get John Cena to do it, put on a wig, maybe some lipstick. But they decided against it, and we'll see how it plays, because it's definitely very different. In the game, it kind of jived with the meme of Neil Druckmann, which is that he likes, I think I saw an article, I forget who wrote it, but it was like an article titled something like Neil's love for muscle mommies. It's like, I can't believe I'm clicking on this. Click. But it's because Neil Druckmann, in a bunch of the games he's headed up, he writes in these like female characters that are specifically like very buff, whether it's Nadine or in the last, or in Uncharted 4, and then in The Lost Legacy, and then also in The Last of Us Part 2 with Abby, being super swole. And it's like, oh, maybe Neil does like him some muscle mommies. Who knows? More power to you. No judgment. I think everybody secretly wants to have their head crushed like a watermelon between some thighs, but it's, most of us don't have the chance to write a video game and create that character, to experience that, I get it. More importantly, Druckmann says, Caitlin Dever wanted to work with us. We wanted to work with her. It's not worth passing it up to continue a search that might never bear fruit to find someone that matches that physicality. And I think this is the interesting bit, is that this is also kind of an acknowledgement of what I just outlined, which is that they could have kept looking, could have looked for somebody, from the WWE who's roided out, or if just find somebody like Brock Lesnar's daughter who's just naturally huge and cast them. But it ultimately, I mean, I think it shows that the physicality and what you look like is nowhere near as important as your acting chops and your ability to portray the character, which is refreshing. It's almost like, you know, you should be cast based on your merit and not just purely based on your looks and stuff. People have bashed, for example, I can't talk. People have bashed, for example, Bella Ramsey because she doesn't look like Abby in the games. And for season 1, I thought that was really unfair. And ultimately, I think when we saw season 1, we saw why that wasn't fair, because she's, you know, a very talented actress. Like Bella is, I think, a really good season 1 or part 1 Ellie. Season 2, we'll see, because obviously 5 years have passed, and based on the shots I've seen, Bella Ramsey still kind of looks 12 years old. So, like, we'll see how it plays, but I don't know. But they, anyway, they continue on. No matter who the showrunners cast as Abby, though, they were bound to spark controversy. The character's stacked physique and brutal story arc placed her at the center of a torrent of online vitriol when hackers leaked hours of footage from part 2 in April of 2020. As Druckmann, his co-writer Haley Gross, and the voice actors and the team at Naughty Dog scrambled to get through COVID isolation to make the game's June release, and Druckmann continued to work on season 1, they were inundated with anti-Semitism, misogyny, homophobia, death threats to themselves and their families. I'm still amazed that in the middle of all of it, we would get on a Zoom call. We would talk about how to make this television show, Mazin says. And here he was like, okay, I'm compartmentalizing. That world goes away. Now we work on the show. I wouldn't have been able to get out of bed. I asked Druckmann how he managed through this crisis, and he said, not very well at the time, he says, sounding grim. I get hyperfixated on stuff, so when I'm alone and I have time to think, and worse, I have time to browse, that's when it gets the most dangerous. I'm starting to doubt myself. What if I did ruin it? What if I did make a piece of shit? It was a narrative that Mazin would not abide, Druckmann says. Craig was saying, who cares what they think? I'm telling you, this is awesome. Listen to me. And I mean, ultimately, to a certain extent, I can appreciate just trying to create a story that you believe in, even if the critics or people online are initially like, stop. Because I do think artists and writers should just do what they want to do without fear of recourse or whatever. I think the tough thing with The Last of Us Part 2 specifically is that it did, whether you love it or not, and I love a lot of aspects of The Last of Us Part 2 to be clear, what we do know for a fact is that it did piss off a ton of fans who honestly did like The Last of Us Part 1 and hated what they did in part 2. And that's something that you can't really argue with. Sure, there were people that also hated it that never played the first game and had no idea what they were doing and have never played part 2 and, you know, blah, blah, blah. But there definitely were a lot of fans of the first game who were turned off and pissed off by the second game. And to that extent, I mean, what makes it tough is how do you decipher who's the real fans and who's not, who to listen to and who not to, which is why it just turns into a cacophony of nonsense, you know, before you before you get done with it. Because it's just like, it can be kind of tough to figure out who the real fans are and who's offering genuine critiques and thoughts and who is just trying to freak out and rage about stuff. You know, it's like we talked a handful of weeks ago about that one YouTuber guy, or I think he's just on X, but it's one of those guys that just rages about culture war stuff and claims to be a gamer. And then he started raging and he made this post about Fable. And he's like, this article is really worrying. It says in Fable, you're able to wear a dress regardless of your character's sex. So clearly the game is going woke. And I'm saying this as a longtime fan of Fable. I love the original games. But the guy got baited and didn't realize the article he was posting was originally updated in like 2012. Like 2012. And it was about the first Fable game. It wasn't even about this one. And so he just like totally revealed himself to have no idea what he's talking about, you know?
$3. Hey Luke, I was wondering if you heard of this game called Paradise XRPL? It's looked like GTA, but made with AI. We might have another the day before situation.
Wait, yes, I do recall that. I think we have looked at it on stream. That's the one that they shoved a bunch of crypto stuff into, right? It like weirdly mentions a bunch of crypto stuff where it's like, oh yeah, and then you can also earn Ethereum while playing and stuff. It's like very, very sketchy. Yeah, I think I have heard of that. Wouldn't be surprised if that ends up being a total disaster. Yeah. Will, is the Twitter guy you mentioned the same one that criticized the historical significance of the AC Shadows character? I mean, I'm sure he's probably also said stuff about that, but I mean, you can be. The problem is that like my frustration is when people start lying because they're not interested in what's true or real. They just want to further their team's fight within a culture war topic or issue. I think that that's just not helpful, and I think it can corrupt otherwise good discourse and useful discourse. And I think you see that in that example where it's like, this guy's claiming he has this opinion because he's a gamer, and therefore his opinion should be valid because he's a gamer who liked the original games. He wouldn't just be saying this if it was just out of nowhere. And then he reveals to everybody he has no idea what he's talking about the original games. He doesn't actually care. He didn't even read the article he's reposting, because if he did, he would have seen it was written over 10 years ago. You know? And so it's the definition of bad faith discourse. And you know, he ended up deleting the post because he got blown up and everybody like was making fun of him. But that's the problem, is he deletes the post and he's just going to keep doing what he's been doing. You know, no, there's nothing that's going to happen other than us kind of calling it out and then making fun of it. No, it wasn't Grums. I think it was like I think it was Pirate something, Pirot or something like that. Continuing on. Okay, with Mazin's enthusiasm and pep talks, as well as the support of his inner circle, Druckmann thickened his skin to the point that he doesn't think any commensurate online hatred for season 2, The Last of Us Part 2, would upset him. Quote, I love the changes that we've made. He says it's a different version of that story, but its DNA is in there. Maybe more than excited. I'm really curious what their reaction will be. They're framing it as like, not just we made some tweaks for the sake of telling the story, which is how they framed it in the season 1 or part 1 stuff. No, it wasn't Pirate Software. It was like, I don't know. It was Nation of Pirates or something like that. Anyway. So, where was I? Oh yeah. But with, okay, refocus, Luke. Deep breath. With the first season, they framed a lot of the changes they were making specifically as, we are making these tweaks and changes, but it's because we have to do this to make the story from the game fit into a TV show format, right? And that made sense to me. But this time around, they're framing it as, we've made changes. It's a different version of that story, but the DNA is in there. When you're framing it as like the DNA is still there, I'm thinking of a much more substantial change. Because if you're tweaking something, yeah, no duh, the DNA is there. Like, we put a little lipstick here, we put a little makeup there, we touch this up, a new shirt, but it's the same person. Yeah. When you have to specify the DNA is still there, it makes me think you're doing much more significant changes, which is interesting. Imagine they didn't kill Joel off in the show. That would be insane. I'm starting to think there's a strong chance that they do something much more transformation. I mean, I think that they're going to be doing something like Joel doesn't die in Jackson, or maybe Tommy runs off because something happened in Seattle or something, and then he runs off to Seattle, so Joel and Ellie go off together initially. I don't know. I'm getting the feeling like they're going to be changing a lot more than, oh, instead of a golf club, it's a baseball bat now. Oh, instead of her beating him to death, she uses a gun. I think they're going to be doing something much more foundational because they're talking about it that way, but indirectly, you know. How much longer The Last of Us could continue, meanwhile, remains an open question. Mazin and Druckmann always planned to split part 2 into more than one season. They're just not sure how many more seasons there will be. Quote, it feels like we've got 1 or 2 more seasons. It's getting harder to make because every episode gets big. You don't want to wait 4 years for a 17 episode finish or whatever it is. Then there's the long whispered possibility of The Last of Us part 3. Part 3. What's going to happen? This is a big moment. This is what's been going around social media. Part 3. I was waiting for this question, Druckmann says, sighing, when I bring up the prospect of a third game. He says, quote, I guess the only thing I would say is don't bet on there being more of Last of Us. This could be it. And this is interesting because this is flipped compared to what he's said at the end of that documentary, Grounded 2 or whatever, where he was like, I've been trying to find the next chapter in that story. Let's see. It's like one of the very last things he says.
Is its own thing and yet has this through line for all 3.
Here.
He is as exciting as one, as exciting there. And for now years, I haven't been able to find that concept. But recently that's changed. And I don't have a story, but I do have that concept that to me is as exciting as 1, as exciting as 2, is its own thing, and yet has this through line for all 3. So it does feel like there's probably 1 more chapter to the story.
But now he's saying something a little bit different. Now he's saying, don't bet on there being more. Which maybe is just like, don't get your hopes up so when it happens, you're excited. Maybe that's what it is. Or maybe it's the more he's thought about it and worked on it, he's like, it's just not going to be worth the trouble. Who knows? Who knows? But I don't know. Dude, 1 HP voice. I have never heard that term, Doom of Sudan, but somehow I know exactly what you mean. The 1 HP voice. I kind of love that term. That's fantastic. That's so funny. It's like the lazy kind of, yeah, I think we're going to be doing this. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. That's clever. I like that. He just kill Ellie and Tommy. Yeah, that's the through line. He's like, what's the through line for all these stories? We kill everybody. Love it. And the theme is death. Death. You never know. No matter what the show's long-term prospects with a renewal all but guaranteed from HBO, Mazin and Druckmann will soon start their process all over again. We've been feeling scared lately about like, oh yeah, I have to start thinking about season 3. I remember having this feeling when we were finishing season 1 where I was like, how the F are we going to top this? Now, of course, I'm like, how the F are we going to top this? End quote. No comments yet. That's why you come to Luke Stevens Live, because we talk about stuff first. Right as the story breaks. I think realistically that last little bit that people are going on and on about with The Last of Us Part 3, I think realistically they eventually do it. I think that after Intergalactic Heretic Prophet, they do probably something different, something fresh. Maybe it's a sequel to Intergalactic, or maybe it's a new IP entirely, or they do something for Uncharted again, just as a throwback. Because at that point, we'll probably be like, 15 years out from The Last of Us, or from Uncharted 4, which is crazy to think about, but that's a strong possibility by the time we see the project after Intergalactic. So I think it's going to be a while before The Last of Us Part 3, if it ever happens. And even then, I think maybe the lesson with The Last of Us Part 2 is that sometimes stories are best left as is. And you just don't mess with it. You don't rock the boat, You just don't rock the boat. Not every Yoda needs a CGI counterpart. Not every, monster needs remastering. Like sometimes you can just leave it as is. Not every gun needs to be replaced with a radio. Sometimes you just gotta keep what you did as it was and as it is, and create something fresh and new. You know, I think that's one of the takeaways. But perhaps the more cynical corporate way of looking at this is The Last of Us Part 2 sold millions by millions by millions of copies, and it generated discourse and hype for the franchise on a level never before seen for a video game of that scale. And then it led into an HBO show that was clearly massively popular. So even though The Last of Us Part 2 generated plenty of drama and discourse, can you really argue with the result? You know, the franchise is bigger than it ever has been before. So maybe the soulless corporate way of looking at it is the drama still sold and it didn't really matter at the end of the day. Let me know your thoughts. But either way, in April, we're going to get to see The Last of Us Season 2. And I'm more intrigued after reading this because I do think there's a strong possibility that they've changed a lot more than we initially thought. Okay. Do I prefer Amy Hennig Uncharted or Neil Druckmann Uncharted? I prefer a melding of the two, so I'm just going to dodge that question. I like how irreverent Amy Hennig's Uncharted's were, but I love the narrative structure of
getting a PC
Neil's.
handheld. Do you recommend getting one now based on the options available or waiting? I haven't seen many rumors about new releases.
If you are interested in one right now, the RG Ally X is what I'd recommend. It runs Windows, so you can still install Game Pass and other launchers if you need to. So I would do that. As for future releases, yeah, I haven't really heard a lot of rumblings. I know they showed some stuff at CES, but those aren't coming till like late this year. So, you know, if you want one now, get one now. If you have the patience and you want to wait till like December, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of new options and some fresher stuff that's updated. But yeah, Steam Deck OLED is the go. That's also very, very good. Battery life is solid, but the ROG Ally X, I've been eating it up. It's my favorite PC gaming handheld, personally. Also, shout out Split Fiction for some solid reviews. Split Fiction's awesome. It's not. I played it with Nikki. We posted the review on the big channel yesterday, but it's very good. It's just very different from It Takes Two. It Takes Two is way goofier and sillier. This game is way more like serious. There's still some goof, you know, don't get me wrong. Like there's still some silly bits, but it deals with much more heavy stuff. So let me catch up on these super chats real quick. Lord Chut, thank you for the 15 months. Hope you've been practicing your backflips like you promised. You have a month, Lucathy. Love you, Pookie. I love you too. Yeah. Oh, I can do a double backflip now. So I jump once and go around twice before I land. It's pretty crazy. I would show you now, but my back is sore. That's the only reason. Mr. Serial Kill, thank you for the 2. What is your opinion on Ellie's actor anyway? I think I mentioned it in that segment, but basically I think Bella's really good for season 1 Ellie. Season 2, we'll see. Season 2 is just, I mean, Part 2 Ellie is very different from Part 1, and I think it needs to be portrayed differently, and they've not really tried to do anything to I think age Bella or anything like that. It just seems like Bella Ramsey, but now wearing a different coat. So we'll see. Part 1, I was always like, Ellie has a very unique look and Bella does not have that look, but I thought the performance was there. It was quite good. But season 2 is going to be interesting. That one I think is going to be very different. Goodrich, thank you for the 5. When I started in games in the late 90s, it wasn't a prestigious career, often looked down on. I would lie about my job on dates, how far we've come. Yeah, isn't that crazy, Goodrich? Now it's like, wow, you work for a video game developer? That's cool. You know, it's very different. Bender the Offender, thank you for the 5. I like to think that part 2 was a longer version of the Ironwood area in God of War Ragnarok. Yeah, honestly, that's not that. I can't. Yeah. That's funny. Let's see. Real serious. Thank you for the super chat. Hi, Luke. Just curious. Do you prefer Amy Hennig's Uncharted or Druckmann's Uncharted? Well, Uncharted 4 is awesome. I have to admit, it feels odd how less epic the story feels compared to the previous settings. The biggest thing is that they shifted away from the like supernatural stuff. I think to make it so they could focus on the relationships between Nate and what's his wife's name? Oh crap, what's his wife's name? Nate's wife. Elena. I was gonna say Ellie, but I was like, nope, that's just The Last of Us. Elena and Sam. I mean, they clearly wanted to explore those relationships more. So I think the pivot to a more grounded, more realistic story made sense in that context. And, you know, it's also, I think the OG Uncharted games are a product of their time. When the first Uncharted game came out, like, it was pretty normal and it was kind of industry standard to have Nazi zombies as the protagonists or antagonists rather in your game. Like that was pretty standard. And then you go, oh, you have a guy that's trying to collect power to take over the world. And then he turns into a super mutant that basically downed the toxin, like in Arkham Asylum. Like, so the games were reflections of their time, I think. As for which I prefer, I think Uncharted 2, they'll kind of 2 and 3 kind of blur together for me. But I think the OG Amy Hennig Uncharted's are really great. They're very campy, but the stories aren't that great and the character development's not that great, but they're fun and just outrageous. 4, I think, is much better storytelling, but I think that some of the scope and grandeur suffers. But for me, the other thing to remember is that I love me some pirates. And Uncharted 4 is like the only real game we've gotten in the last decade that has done high production value pirate stuff. And even if all the pirates are dead in that game, but still. So probably 4 if I had to pick one to like replay right now. Let's see. Mark Fleming, thank you for that 10 super chat. Hey Luke, I'm getting shadows and I have 6700 XT. Do you think it'll be fine playing at 1440p 60? 6700. I mean, I'll be real, I am not sure, but they have posted their spec sheets and everything, so you can look it up. Maybe if somebody in chat has a better grasp of AMD GPUs. I'll be completely real. I'm not too familiar with the AMD lineup in terms of scaling and stuff. So maybe somebody in chat can tell you based on the sheet that they've shared. Because I'm just not sure. What I do know is that the game, in theory, should be relatively polished and run fairly well. But we shall see. Jimothy, thank you for the 5. How difficult is Split Fiction compared to It Takes Two? My wife isn't exactly a pro gamer, but we had lots of fun with It Takes Two. Seems more involved. Split Fiction is, I think, more difficult. It's a little bit more challenging at parts. We still got through it just fine, but there's certain levels that require a little bit more coordination where it's like, okay, I'm going to do this. Now you do that. And then you have to let go at this point. So we swing over here, I'll grab, and then you swing over here and then I'll let go and you grab this. So there's a little bit more coordination involved. But if I had to describe Split Fiction, it just feels like It Takes Two, but more mature, both in terms of gameplay demand and then also in terms of story. So it's a little bit more, but I still think it'll be perfectly doable. Luke, Google PS5 exclusives going to Xbox. Why? What is it? I mean, I just see Stellar Blade rumored, Final Fantasy 16. That's okay. I feel like I'm missing something. Was something funny supposed to happen? Not sure. Let's talk about this real quick. Let's see. Also, Figaro, thank you for the super chat, or not super chat, for the resub with Prime. Thank you, my friend. Hi, Luke. I'm thinking of getting a PCL. Oh, it read that one off for me. Okay, yeah. Thank you again for the sub. Thank you. Thank you. What about No Way Out? No Way Out was... It's a little bit different. It's a little bit more... I mean, it's just like an earlier version. I also like No Way Out. It's also not as like goofy or anything, but I think if you liked It Takes Two and if you like Split Fiction, you absolutely should play that. Yeah. Let's see. Opinions on the 50 series lacking horsepower. I mean, it's the prime example of what happens when a company like Nvidia has no real competition on the high end or the mid end until like yesterday with the AMD stuff. This is just what happens when you have no competition. You can do whatever you want. You can price your graphics cards at $700 or $800 or whatever it is, and offer basically no like performance improvement unless you're using all of these features for like fake frames and stuff. But that's the problem, is if you want a graphics card in that class, like, you're gonna buy it. You kind of have to. There's no real other option, you know? Thank you for that.
Drive Ice 1 donated $3. Man, I know you have said this many times before, but I can't find it. What headphones do you use?
Oh, these are the Arctis Nova Pro, I believe. Ooh, they're on sale right now. This looks like it, but I have a slightly different version. Does this still have the battery swap? No. Oh, I think it's the wireless version. I have the wireless version of this. Arctis Nova Pro wireless. Yeah, this is what I have. It's great. It's great. The best thing about these headphones is that you take off the little ear cup thing and there's the battery that goes in, and you can just take the battery out when your battery on your headphones gets low. Take it out. Take the freshly charged one that stays in the socket. Take that out, put it in. You're back at full charge on your headphones, and then it charges the battery that was just in the headset. So you always have a full battery ready to go. So whenever, like, there is no, oh, my headphones are dying, let me set it on the charging dock for 20 minutes and then I'll be able to listen again. There's none of that. You just swap out for a full battery. It's awesome. It's great. So do recommend. It's pricey, but it's good. It's very good. It has 2 batteries. I feel like these never do that. Or they make you, they make you buy the second one for $40 or something stupid like that. It's like, oh yeah, you can hot swap batteries, but you have to pay. It's really a big bummer. Yeah. What was I just gonna look up? Oh yeah. We should have the podcast with Jor today too. Let me double check. Let's see, why do I have like 50,000 notifications? What is that about? Joraptor, talk to me. I'm lonely. Okay. No podcast today. I did hear from Jor. He had something come up. It snuck up on him in the shadows in the middle of the night, and it's taking his time. Okay, let's talk about this. It's okay. We have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to talk about here, so it's okay. Okay. You ready? New say segment. Oh, he's playing Horizon again. What if it's, dude, it's not this, but you know, we did that segment a couple days ago where we talked about the Horizon Online game, and that stream clip did pretty good, if I do say so myself. Shout out Jacob for clipping it. Nice and well. Where is it? Yeah, it did like 90K, right? Like, it did pretty good for a stream clip. And wouldn't it be really funny if Joris saw that and was like, no, I can't talk to Luke this week. We can't. It would be a little funny. It'll be a little funny. But no, that's not what it is. That's not what it is. I do hope it ends up being baller, dude. I hope it's badass, but we'll see. We'll see. I'm buckled in and waiting. Okay. You ready for this? Stevens is, it's my birthday. Let's watch a Cobra video.
That's most definitely what's up.
It's your birthday. I mean, hold on. What's a good one? What's a good classic? I'll show a quick snippet of the hair dye. So King Cobra, he dyed his hair. Let's just watch this one. He dyed his hair. He dyed his hair. This is 7 seconds, and then we'll watch the Marvel one. Black hair.
Somebody dyed their hair black.
It's so quiet. Somebody dyed their hair black. Yeah, he dyes his hair and his mustache and his eyebrows, but he does it so poorly that it stains his face for days on end. It's pretty glorious.
That's most definitely what's up.
Oh, it is indeed. There you go. There you go. Moist Critical? It did kind of look like Moist Critical, honestly. Oh, Cobra. Oh, Cobes. Okay. Okay. F sickos. Let's talk about this. New segment for real this time. Okay. One of the most viral games that was revealed almost exactly a year ago at GDC is Marvel 1943. Thank you guys for the super chats. We'll talk about those momentarily. Unless you throw $20, in which case it plays on stream. It plays the full text. But anyway, Marvel 1943. This was shown off at GDC. It is the next project from Amy Hennig, who is of Uncharted fame. If you don't know, she's the one that headed up Uncharted 1, 2, and 3, which are many people's favorite Uncharted games. And then she went off, was working on some Star Wars stuff that went nowhere and got canned and kind of bounced around a lot. But now they're making this. And this game, no matter what you say about it, the story trailer is gorgeous. And it was shown off as part of GDC because it's part of an initiative that they're doing with Unreal Engine 5.4, where they're showcasing the amazing technology. There's Amy, the legend. And you can see them actually demonstrating how these scenes work. Forgive the bitrate struggling. All those triangles is like a nightmare for encoders like this. But anyway, you can see that they showcase some of the tools they're using for these environments, what is possible. And so it really seems that it's not even just being framed. It's literally being sold as a tech masterpiece demo thing, a showcase game. Now, there was another one of these back in the day. I swear I wasn't just trying to show you, a road. They were showing it to show like these dynamic textures and stuff that also affects meshes and all that. But with this, it's a game that looks gorgeous, no doubt, but it's never as simple as great graphics making a great game, right? If that was the standard, then The Order 1886 Horizon, like these games would be all 10 out of 10 masterpieces, right? It's not as simple as just graphics. And what we've not seen is gameplay and stuff. And we've also not seen anything else. They've been quiet for basically a year, even though it's slated for this year, which is always a little weird. When it's like, hey, they've announced this and it's supposed to be out this year. Where is it? What's going on? Well, during a recent interview, one of the voice actors behind Marvel 1943, Rise of Hydra, narrowed the game's release window and said, so this is Peyton, who plays its version of the Marvel hero Black Panther, disclosed that they're still working on it, but are thinking it will see the light around Christmas. We're still working. We're planning on 2025. We're thinking like a Christmas situation, but I'm so excited. So expecting Christmas. And this was during like, you know, multi-con interview. So I'm not sure if he was supposed to say that, but that's always where the most fun comes from, is when a voice actor says something and it's like, oopsie. And then they get a slap on the wrist from the publisher who's like, you weren't supposed to say anything. So we'll see. Realistically, I think it gets delayed. That's just my sneaking suspicion personally, but time will tell. We've talked about it. We've talked about like what this could end up actually being. Realistically, I think that this is just one of those games that will be like, honestly, it's probably going to be like 5 hours long. I really think so. I think it's going to be basically a quick time event game. And, you know, that doesn't mean it will be like not worth trying. But I swear to God, if they charge like $70 for it and it's 4 hours long and mostly QuickTime events, I'm going to be like, is this what we're doing? But you know what? They have an opportunity to surprise us, because if they're able to maintain this level of quality and they also have some solid gameplay, we're in for a treat. I mean, this could be like a new standard graphically for Unreal Engine games, which would be awesome to see. Because whenever you raise the bar, it forces everybody to get their act together, right? You know, so you want games that raise the bar. But historically, when we've seen games like this that look phenomenal, but there's not a lot of discussion or discourse about gameplay, you do have to wonder. This trailer was released in February of 2015. Do you feel old yet? Literally a decade ago. Over 10 years ago. Over 10 years ago. On 2013 hardware. On a PlayStation. And I think, you know, other than the obvious like resolution limitations at the time, I think this game looks stunning, even to this day. Even to this day, I think if you released a game that looked this good, it would be considered, yeah, it's one of the better games graphically this year. I feel like we're getting consistent releases even nowadays that don't look this good. So, and this is also the tragedy. Ready at Dawn, who made this, they were later bought out by Meta, and then Meta used them, or I think it was Oculus bought them, and then Meta bought Oculus, but whatever the order was. They were then forced to do a bunch of VR stuff, and they got pretty good at it. I think they did the Lone Echo games, which are some of the best VR games out there. But they were shut down. Ready at Dawn is gone now. But they had a bunch of like Santa Monica devs, a bunch of Naughty Dog devs, or rather a bunch of those devs that are there now. They've moved from Remedy or Ready at Dawn rather to those places. So a lot of the DNA from Order 1886 is now in these big games because they moved from this studio to those. But even this trailer, like they show some gameplay, they show some stuff, but the whole game was like 5, 6, 7 hours long, depending on what difficulty you were playing on and how good you were at it. And there just wasn't a lot there, but it was a set piece game. It was a tech demo game meant to show what was possible. And I think that this game actually influenced the industry in a lot of ways. It set the standard for this cinematic quality that people loved. And I think that was the interesting takeaway from the Order 1886. The game was roundly like dismissed and mocked. It was deemed, you know, unacceptable. It was deemed overpriced and all this, but there was a lesson learned. that I think actually reflected a serious and I think good self-reflection on the part of Sony executives at the time. Imagine that, executives taking something positive away from a bad situation instead of just going scorched earth. And that was that they looked at it and they said, people love this trailer. People are very upset about the length of the Order 1886 because they liked what it had so much. They wanted more. And they took that and said, okay, how do we realistically give more of this cinematic quality, graphical fidelity, of this more cinematic storytelling? How do we do that while giving them more volume in the content? And then they took those lessons and they applied it to Santa Monica with God of War, to Naughty Dog with The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, and then, of course, after this, Uncharted 4 even. And we saw it applied across their rosters. So they took lessons from the Order 1886, even if we never got a sequel, even if this studio ended up kind of going the way of the dodo. They still took something away from it. And I think that the Order 1886 really did influence the industry in a powerful and profound way, but not in the way maybe they were hoping, which was just to sell lots of copies and get a sequel that did really well. But, you know, it still influenced the industry, which is why I still to this day, you see this? See this? Behind me in all these videos, I have the collector's edition statue from the Order 1886. It's also just a beautiful sculpt too. I mean, it's gorgeous and very unique. But I still have this to this day. I didn't order it at the time. I got it on eBay. It was unopened. And if I recall correctly, the story was that a lady, I think she was like breaking up with her boyfriend or husband or something, and he had bought it or she had bought it for him or something. But basically it had sat in their garage for a decade and just they never done anything with it. And so she was deciding to sell it all off before anybody found out. She's like, I'm just getting rid of all this crap. I was like, okay, well, I'm glad to help you there. So anyway, the Order 1886 is one of those games that really impacted and influenced the industry long term. And I think there's a real chance, judging from the fidelity and everything on this trailer, I think there's a strong chance that we do see a similar influence from this game, where it could also push a lot of other studios and publishers to up their game graphically and in terms of fidelity and cinematic quality. But whether it ends up being the best video game remains to be seen. But I mean, you can look at it. It's got 7.9 million views. Some of that's probably paid media. I mean, they might have paid for some of those views to set it up as like an ad, a pre-roll ad or something on YouTube. But either way, I've heard a lot of people talk about it. A lot of people have seen it. Even those that are not following gaming closely know about this. And I think it shows there's interest in games that can deliver this level of fidelity and quality and cinematic quality. It's just whether you can turn that into a good video game at the same time that remains to be seen. But they intend to release this year still, and the voice actor's still saying that he's expecting Christmas-ish, which, I mean, who knows? Maybe if the game is only like 4 or 5 hours, releasing in Christmas might not be a bad idea. It's just one of the things you're playing while you're on Christmas vacation. You play it in an afternoon or evening and you call it good. Might not be a bad idea. The key is pricing. I mean, that's the key thing. If they're like, hey, transparently, this is a shorter, tighter experience. Think of it like a really long movie you get to play. And as a result, we're going to charge $20 for it. I think people would be like, okay, you're being transparent and clear. Okay. The problem with like the Order 1886 is that so often the studios know that that's going to be a problem for some people. And so they just try to hide it, not talk about it until the reviews come out, and reviews are like, hey, the game is really short, just so you know, like really, really short. And then it causes drama because it feels like it was being hidden from players, because it kind of was. And it's just unnecessary drama. Just be transparent, you know? That's the key takeaway. So anyway, we'll see probably more of Marvel 1943 either at GDC, which is coming in like a week and a half, 2 weeks, whatever it is, you know, on the anniversary of when they showed it off. I think that's very possible. We see it there. And then maybe we see like preview impressions or press impressions at Summer Games Fest or something like that. I think that would be realistic, but we'll see. No way it's $20, $50 minimum. Yeah, I think $20, to be clear, is wishful thinking on my part, but allow me to wish, please. Let me have this, please. Okay, let me catch up on these super chats real quick. Zach, thank you for the 5. Hey, Luke, you should check out Digital Foundry's new video on AMD's FSR 4 versus 3.1. Looks like AMD is making some good progress. I think I do have it pulled up. Maybe. If we have time, we'll look at it, because it does seem like they're making progress. They still are a ways off from DLSS 4, in my opinion, but I mean, it's way better than 3.1, which is saying something. I mean, they needed to take some leaps forward. And Spencer, thank you for the 2. We're going to look at Atomfall deep dive. It's awesome. If we have time today, if not, we'll do it Friday probably. We just got to get through a couple of other little bitty things. Okay. This, I don't know if this is like enough for a whole segment, but I do feel like we would just mention this. So back last year in September, they announced that the layoffs that were going to affect Ballistic Moon did hit, but now they're fully shutting everything down. So what was weird is that the Until Dawn remake, this thing was released in, was it like December or something? Hold on, please hold. Loading. No, it was released in October. So this Until Dawn remake was released in October, but we heard about layoffs that were hitting the studio in September. And they announced all of those layoffs in September. So before their project had even launched, they were laying off a bunch of members of the studio. Sony Publishing was, or I guess their parent company, which I think is Sony. Either way, a bunch of employees were being laid off before it even launched. It launched. It was not great, didn't run great, and it just seemed to redo a bunch of stuff that didn't really need to be redone, a bunch of lighting changes. Other things were significantly better, to be clear, but they had redone a ton of stuff, and it just wasn't enough, and people weren't too thrilled with it. And so they just announced, basically, that they quietly have laid off a bunch of other staff, resulting in 20 more developers losing their job. So now it's just a skeleton crew doing post-launch support and updates, and so now they are just going to totally shut it down. Regarding working at the studio, most people who spoke said that it was generally a good place to work. Many spoke highly of their teams and the work being done. What they didn't like, though, were instances of unpaid overtime. One former employee equated to weeks of unpaid work, and that the internal announcement of redundancies came after the team had worked overtime. Nice reward for our hard work. Ballistic Moon's leadership has yet to put out a full official statement on the status of the studio and whether or not it has been or will be closed. In technical terms, it remains active in name, should a publisher sign on or funding come from elsewhere. And if that happens, they could start hiring again to work on a new project. But for now, it's basically shut down, and they're moving on. So it's too bad. It's too bad. It seems like they just decided, whoever is running the studio was like, the money's not really there. Let's just shut it down. You know, even now they've got some positive reviews on the Steam page for it. 80% of total reviews are positive. 84 of recent reviews are positive. But I think they needed a lot more money coming in from this. You know, they released this, but I think also their goal was to get this out. So when they release the movie spin-off thing they're doing, that they get people to go buy the game. You know, it's just more Herman Hulst, Jim Ryan nonsense, and it is what it is. How to make a game. Hire people to make game. Make game. Fire people. Yeah. The movie looks awful. Honestly, dude, for me, I like Until Dawn a lot. I do. But I'm still like, what I liked were the choose your adventure stuff. Like I like that stuff. I don't know why I would I don't know why I'd be interested in a spin-off movie that has nothing to do like, then it's just a generic horror movie. Like, why do you think I would be super into that? But it's just that corporate executive thing where it's like, hey, we have this thing people like, make a movie of that thing, we make money. That's really the extent of the thought process. It's really dumb. Okay, news segment. Okay. So you might have missed it, but yesterday there was a release, an update. Grand Theft Auto 5 on PC got enhanced. This is a quick little side-by-side from Nick Tech that showcases some of the improvements. But it's been going viral for a few different reasons. But a lot of people have been saying that the improvements are like really bad and laughable and not worth the upgrade. Now, to be clear, my understanding is that the PC upgrade enhancement, whatever, is included. It just hits the game and updates. But you can see these side by sides. The console version already received updates, to be clear, going to the enhanced version. Okay. Look in the distance. There's like some lighting differences and stuff like that. But these side-by-sides make it pretty clear that the improvements or enhancements are not like some major reinvention. It's not a remake. If you know what to look for, you can spot differences, but it's far from like this huge overhaul that people were hoping for. But here's the deal. Maybe this is me being like too harsh, but it's a free update. Which means I think unless the free update makes things work or worse, I don't think you can complain. Like it's literally free. Okay. So if they were charging $10 for it, yeah, I would probably be like, okay, yeah, we can dig into it more. But it's literally free. It's literally free. And like I said, if you know what you're looking for, you can find the differences. So Lucas Yoshi on X made this little comparison on compare.media where you can actually slide and show the differences. So on the left, you see full ray traced ambient occlusion and full ray traced global illumination turned on. Okay. On the right, you see all of that turned off. So basically what it was before. And here you can start to see the differences. Most of it is coming from ray traced global illumination. Okay, so the light comes in from outside the shed, bounces off the ground, and then back up, meaning that the light inside is warmer instead of weirdly cold. If we go to the Elgin Avenue overpass, you can see the differences in the lighting, how it's bouncing, and all of that. If you know where to look, you can start to see some differences. The tunnel, you can start to see some differences with how the light falls off deep inside. Here you can see some differences between the light. In general, I think it just makes things look way brighter, but here, like the shadows are technically more realistic instead of just being really cold and dark. But part of it also is I think people have been looking at these games for so long that they've come to know and love how the game looks, the color of the shadows, the temperature of the light as it bounces around, or rather doesn't. And so seeing the technically better lighting might just feel more inaccurate or inappropriate, Rays do look more traced. They do indeed. But this is where you can start to see technically the light is bouncing more. Things, are being lit more realistically based on the color of the light that would be bouncing onto them, which, is technically an improvement. But my takeaway from this, and maybe this is unreasonable, or maybe this is just me being overly optimistic. I look at this as a real testament to how impressive the original game was. We could throw fits about this or that. We could go about all that, but really at the end of the day, let's just appreciate how freaking amazing GTA 5 was at launch, to still even running on PC with the PC port from I think 2014 it still looks freaking phenomenal. It really is impressive. And I think it looks impressive because they were able to bake in a lot of the lighting. You know, that's one of the key techniques they use to achieve that fidelity. But, you know, even if we look back at this trailer from 13 years ago, November of 2011, the biggest thing you'll notice is the resolution. The max resolution they uploaded this in was 720. And that's wild. That's wild. So the updates do improve stuff, maybe not as much as people were hoping for one reason or another. But I think that those expectations, I mean, for one, it's a free update. I literally don't think you can complain. You can still play, I think, the OG version, non-enhanced if you want to. This is the legacy PC version. Then he's going to toggle it forward in a moment to the enhanced console version and then to the enhanced PC version. But it's literally free. But what's interesting is that this marks, as far as we know, like the last update for GTA 5 before GTA 6, before they put all the effort into that. And they basically moved this team onto that one, which will be very interesting to see because we're in the home stretch, baby. We're in the home stretch. I think these ray traced reflections are where you're going to see most of the difference. Yeah. There you go. You do see some of the like boiling artifacting there and here, but still looks very good. So there you go. They're also going in copyright striking cheat engines. So as you can see, in the last few months, Take-Two lawyers have been trying to crack down on cheat menus. Today, one of the most popular paid menus, Take-One, announced its end. Shut down the menu and website or we will take legal action. Another popular menu, Strand, received similar message but claimed Take-Two has no personal info for them to pursue on. So they've announced they're shutting down all those cheat menus and stuff. So I think they're revving up. They're revving up for sure. And if any of these companies or teams are trying to like plan for cheat menus and stuff in GTA 6, I would just tell you, like, be ready, because it really, really seems that Take-Two is going to go scorched earth on anyone and everybody that they think is going to step on their toes for GTA Online and GTA 6. Like, whatever lawyer teams they have, they will throw everything at you. They hate modding. Yeah, I mean, they hate anything that infringes on anything that they consider to be theirs. And they're like, no, GTA 6 is ours, GTA 5 is ours, GTA Online is ours. And so they're going to crack down on it. For a long time, I think they kind of kept quiet with the RP servers and a lot of stuff that was going on over there because they were like, it's making us money. People are still buying it. People are playing it because streamers are playing it using these mods and stuff. So they kind of just looked the other way. But with the launch of GTA 6, I think that they cannot do that and they have to keep it locked down. So I think they're going to kind of go scorched earth, clean everything, and then they're going to probably loosen up after 6 months, realistically, for the next version of GTA Online. But I think in the short term, they're going to try to rule with an iron fist. Yeah, it kept interest really high. Yeah, I mean, I think it was smart of them to not be total jerks for the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years and just let people kind of do what they needed to do. And if you wanted to play vanilla GTA Online, you just play on your private server. Like, you just don't try to go to a public server. And that was an option. But I think moving forward, they just can't afford to have any of this stuff because it's known, like, you cannot play Rockstar online games or online modes from their games on public servers if you value like your IP address, if you value your privacy and stuff. Like, even Red Dead Online is a hacker's paradise. It's totally overrun. And I pray to the gods of gaming that they've figured something out to avoid the same troubles with next game. Because I swear to God, like, if GTA 6 Online or whatever they end up calling it is just as overrun with with hackers, I'm going to be upset. As will a lot of other people, because I think it's going to be a turnoff. People aren't going to bother playing it, you know? Okay. Let's see. Blake, thank you for the 2. Big KCD 1 and 2 video when? I will consider it and investigate it once we see the hardcore mode. because I want to play KCD 2 again, but right now I'm waiting for the hardcore mode, and then I'm going to go through it again. So maybe we do a big combo video, or what we did with the Arkham series was I did individual critiques for the games, and then we kind of merged them together into one big video. So maybe we do that. I don't know. But we have options. We have options. Okay. Wait, what do you mean Hackers Paradise? I was planning on getting the platform for Red Dead. Dude, I think we were on stream, but at one point we booted up Red Dead Online, and I just wanted to load in because we're trying to capture footage or something for it. And a guy came up to me and very generously like dropped a very nice skin or something from an animal. And he dropped it in front of me. And I was like, oh, it's a player helping me, a new player. How nice. So I strap it up on my horse and I turn around, and he has spawned like hundreds of these gigantic alligators, legendary alligators. And then he's spawning dozens of copies of himself and just overrunning it. And then somebody in chat tells me, oh yeah. The reason he's doing that is because once you add that thing to your inventory, it flags your account, because the devs can see that you have this legendary item, but you didn't ever complete the quest to kill that alligator. So then they can just ban your account. So you'll have these people that are coming up to you, and they basically try to trick you into taking something, making you think they're being nice. And they're actually doing it just to grief you and get your account banned. So just be careful, okay? Be careful. It's a literal Wild West when it comes to Red Dead Online. You got to be careful. It's a bunch of nonsense, bro. That's evil. I know, right? Because it literally like makes you think, oh, they're being nice to me. They're not. They're not. So why don't they get flagged? They do, but they're on an alt account. So they're like, they don't care. Every time they load into the game, it's with a fresh character. They load in all their cheats, which takes them 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Then they're kitted up with the best stuff you can have in the game and everything. And then they just go around trolling people. Like that's the fun for them. It's not even Red Dead Online is the game they're playing. They're playing the game of trolling people trying to play Red Dead Online. It's like a secondary thing. Yeah. Yeah. Is it difficult to IP ban? Well, I mean, even if they IP ban, they just use like a VPN. The only way to really deal with that stuff is hardware bans. But apparently there's a whole debate over whether hardware bans are even like legal in some countries, especially in Europe. Apparently there's some like very specific laws that can be interpreted in a way where it's not like technically legal to do that. But I don't know. That's for people way smarter than me. All I know is I think like if the company wants to ban you, they should be able to ban you. And if they end up banning your GPU because they can identify like the specific stuff on your GPU, then they ban the GPU. But apparently there's even ways to spoof that and put in a new hardware ID so people can't even get around that. Which is why the only way to really deal with it is to have like super low level anti-cheat, which is like kernel level. So you give them access to the inner workings basically of your PC, the bare bones stuff deep down. Some games like Valorant, for example, have anti-cheats that are really, really good like that. Very powerful. Valorant, like at one point I had a mod menu for Fallout New Vegas installed. And it was part of that mod that makes it so you can have the Fallout 4 loot menu where you just like look at a box and it pulls up the menu so you don't have to open it, and then you can just scroll through, pick what you want out of it. It was a mod for that, but the Valorant anti-cheat saw that on my system and like wouldn't let me boot into the game until it was uninstalled. It's like hardcore, dude. It's really hardcore. So, but inevitably, like you'll see people like mass downvoting and flagging and reporting games and trailers for games and stuff that use those kernel level anti-cheats, because like a lot of PC gamers don't like the idea of giving up kernel access to their PC. And I'm sure some of it is like it's the hackers and cheaters that are upset that they can't do it anymore. But I mean, who can tell? I think it's fair to not want to give complete access of your PC to a company. I get that.
Celebrating 5 months with some pizza and your live stream.
Ooh. Ooh, yeah. I'm jealous, Sayura. I'm jealous. I wish I had some pizza. I'm trying to be a good boy and like diet a little bit, because we've been doing really good with these workouts, but like I gotta focus on diet too to get down a little bit. I probably want to lose like maybe 10 pounds, then I'll be happy. But that means I'm eating a lot of like tuna fish salad, which I love me some tuna salad. Don't get me wrong. I love me some tuna salad. But when you've had a lot of tuna salad, a big old slice of pizza sounds real good. It sounds real good. Tell you what. Tuna melts, dude, that's if you're feeling fancy. I will sometimes just do just tuna right out of a Tupperware container. Pre-portioned everything. Back in the day when I was doing a musical, I wanted to lose some weight for the role. So I dropped like 27, I think, pounds. I wasn't that heavy to begin with, but I got like shredded for that role. And it was because I ate basically nothing but Caesar salads with grilled chicken and tuna salad. And like the one cheat treat heavy in carb thing I would have was at the end of the day on my drive home at like 11 at night, I would go to McDonald's and get a Sprite because it didn't have caffeine in it. So I could drink it and still sleep. But that was like, I had all my calories, all my macros very specific, and I was super tight on it. I mean, my macros were hyper aggressive, but it meant I basically was eating nothing but protein. The fats I needed came from the Caesar salad dressing, and then the carbs were basically from the Sprite I got at the end of the day. But I was so on it, dude, and the weight just fell off of me. So I know I can do it pretty easily if I just stick to it, but I just have to do it, you know. Start fasting, Luke. It's Ramadan. That's the thing, though, is fasting doesn't actually work for the type of weight loss I would need. Like, it's not just about not eating. Like, you have to still have your metabolism running so it burns the fat. But if you just stop eating, your body goes into fast mode. It goes into we're starving mode and slows your metabolism down so that you're not burning fat, you have no energy, and you're miserable. So the key is you have to have your macros set properly so that you can still eat and your body is getting nutrients, but it's not getting the nutrients it wants for all the energy it needs for what you're doing. So you have to be exercising a lot, like doing cardio to get your heart rate and metabolism flowing, but then you have to be eating the protein stuff. So the only way it can get the extra like carbs and stuff that it needs is to go and munch on some fat. And then, I mean, like I said, then the weight just falls off. You know, it's pretty easy. You don't necessarily have to go keto, but keto is a great way to drop fat real quick. Too much fish can poison you. Yeah, that's why you shake it up with Caesar salads and grilled chicken. You don't just eat nothing but tuna, but you shake it up. It's like tuna. You can do protein shakes and stuff that are derived from whey. If you can handle that, you can do that pretty easily. Caesar salads are great. Santa Fe salads are great too. Shakes it up a little zing, little spice. I would also just go and grill chicken breasts. I'd grill like 12 at a time, get the dozen pack, grill them all, put them on brown rice. And then I found some sugar-free, like 0-calorie teriyaki sauce. And I just pour some of that on top of the grilled chicken and brown rice. You down that. Super easy. Super easy. Diet time with Luke. Yeah, anyway, sorry. Call of Duty. Okay. New segment. Okay. So we are in a weird time in the generation, okay? Because it looks like there's a strong possibility that for the first time in a long time, I don't even know when the last time this would be maybe turn of the century. For the first time in a long time, we very likely will see a split in the console generation timelines. What does that mean? It means that we probably have the next generation of Xbox consoles a year or two before the PlayStation 6. And that's crazy because traditionally they release alongside each other, and it makes it easier for like multi-plat developers because they can be like, okay, the power levels will be roughly the same. So if we're developing Call of Duty for PlayStation and Xbox, we basically can achieve the same things roughly. It's just on two different platforms. But in terms of power and everything, they're roughly the same. But what's being claimed is that the next Call of Duty 22, sorry, I guess not technically the next Call of Duty for 2026 is being developed for the next generation of Xbox. It's been claimed that Call of Duty 2026, which is assumed to be another Modern Warfare title, is in development for the next generation Xbox. That's according to reputable Call of Duty leaker, the Ghost of Hope, who took to X, formerly Twitter. I find it funny they still have to write formerly Twitter, to break the news after it was announced that Season 3 of Black Ops 6 would be delayed until April. According to Hope, the 2026 title is not being developed for past generation consoles, unlike Call of Duty 2025. So they're going to drop Xbox One and PS4, finally, and is being developed for the next generation of Xbox. So still technically cross-generational. Isn't that funny? Clever. If true, this could be our first real hint that the next-gen Xbox could release around fall of 2026. Also pointed out by Hope is that apparently if Verdansk does not bring players back to Call of Duty Warzone, a third game in the free-to-play Battle Royale will not release. So a lot is hinging on Verdansk. Officially, Activision nor Microsoft have released any information on Call of Duty 2026 or even Call of Duty 2025 at this point in time, but according to our sources, the next game in the Call of Duty franchise is a Black Ops 2 sequel headed once again by Treyarch, following rough internal decisions that saw Sledgehammer Games wanting to develop their own fully fledged Call of Duty title for 2027. As always, take such rumors with a grain of salt. But Call of Duty 2026 being in development for the next-gen Xbox consoles is an interesting tidbit of information, if true. Specifically, this Ghost of Hope individual has a history of releasing a bunch of accurate information, specifically with Call of Duty. So there's a strong chance that this is actually being said to him. But why this is really interesting is because in order to develop your game for the next generation Xbox console, there has to be a next generation Xbox console and it has to be out for people to play it. And Call of Duty typically comes out in November, which would mean that the console, if this were a launch title for it, would probably be out in like November, which would be crazy because we know that PlayStation is looking probably more like 2028, 2027, 2028 before we get the PlayStation 6. The PS5 Pro was their mid-gen refresh, and that, you know, if it's truly mid-gen, that means another like 4 years, which would put it 2028 for the next gen. So you could, by late 2026, be in a spot where Xbox has far and away the most powerful console on the market, which would be very, very interesting, because then what you'll see is like a shift in a lot of these multi-platform marketing cycles and plans, because a lot of these devs will then have to shift and start really prioritizing like marketing through Xbox, because if they want their game to look the best that it can on console, they're going to do their trailers on Xbox platforms. It's why having the most powerful console, or at least a version of your console that's the most powerful console, is important for marketing. Because even now, like there were whole stories on Monster Hunter where it's like, yeah, if you're going to play Monster Hunter on console, the best place is PS5 Pro. You'd hope so. It's the most expensive console. It better be the best place to play. But nonetheless, that's a ton of extra marketing dollars. That's a ton of extra earned media. That's a ton of people potentially buying a PS5 Pro just to get access to that. It wouldn't be a surprise to me if that actually starts to move the needle a little bit. And it also, I mean, there's the other story where, of course, the rumors are that Xbox is working on a handheld as well. Maybe that materializes. Maybe this is the handheld. Probably not, because they're describing it as next generation. But we know they're working on that. And we've also heard like rumblings that Xbox was investigating doing adaptive triggers as well, and maybe that's a feature that they bring similar to the PS5, but they bring it to the next generation of Xbox controllers as well. So it might just be one of those things where Xbox is like, yeah, this gen didn't light the world on fire, but now we've got a lot of games coming. So let's now, with our whole library and Game Pass, let's launch the next era of hardware and just hit the ground running. You know, and maybe they do their mid-gen refresh when PS5 moves to PS6. And so maybe they do it that way. But the point is, all this gets really, really weird if these consoles get staggered. It gets really, really, really weird. Because historically, they always launch around the same time, and then you get to choose which console you want, PlayStation or Xbox. And that's, you buy the one that you and your friends are going to play on, and you got to make your commitment at that point. But maybe Xbox's plan is just like, hey, if people are going to keep choosing PlayStation over Xbox, why go head to head if we don't need to? Maybe instead we just release our next gen console a year or two before they do, and we just get to chill all alone. Devs would hate that? No. If they're dropping Xbox Series X and S mandated support, then I don't think devs hate it. It'll just make it so like developing your game means that you have a ton of extra headroom if you're going to bring it to Xbox. I think devs would be fine with that. The problem would be if they release this next gen Xbox and then they specifically say that like, oh yeah, you also still have to launch on the Series S. Then it becomes a big headache, I think, because it's like, oh my God, we still have to deal with that. Okay. Then I think it's a headache. But I think if they are able to do this in a way that is specifically trying to move forward and raise the ceiling on performance, then I think devs will be fine with it. What was interesting about this is that Juicehead, YouTuber that covers like a lot of RPGs, like Bethesda, stuff like that, he said one of the big reasons I think we could see Elder Scrolls 6 in 2026 is if there is a push internally for it to be a launch title for the next gen Xbox. That seems like a marketing deal for Xbox. And I understand the sentiment, because the idea is if they can get ES6 out in like November or December of 2026, it's a launch title for the next generation Xbox. It's probably exclusive to that hardware, at least for 6 months or so. And that actually could move copies. If you have Call of Duty and Elder Scrolls 6 as exclusives for that platform, I think that does help move a lot of copies. I mean, never underestimate the power of Elder Scrolls. But is this realistically what's possible? Based on my understanding of Bethesda's development practices, I would be shocked if they were able to do that. Because we had, like, if we draw out our little timeline, let's go 2011, okay? 2011, you have Elder Scrolls, sorry, I'm out of practice, 5 Skyrim. 2015, you have Fallout 4. So this is only a 4-year gap. That's not that bad, right? It's a tight turnaround, but this was also like late 2011, late 2015 when it actually launched, but still 4 years. That's doable. And then 2018, we had, of course, Fallout 76. And this has kind of changed over the years, because when it initially launched and was a disaster, you heard a lot of like Bethesda defenders saying, no. This was done by by Bethesda Game Studios Austin, a separate team. The Maryland studio didn't really work on it. But later, we actually heard many interviews and many discussions of how the Maryland team did a ton of work on Fallout 76. So, you know, they weren't just working on Starfield like for this whole time from 2015 through 2023. They were actually doing a ton of work on Fallout 76. So, like, it wasn't actually true that you know, this was a totally isolated thing. So that actually helps with this argument, though, because that means in 2023, we got Starfart. And so they spent about 5 years realistically working on Starfield in full. I mean, they were doing some work back here as well. Of course, there were some leaks around this time of early production work that was happening, but full production started after 2018 when the team fully freed up. And then that leads us to, of course, Elder Scrolls 6, which is somewhere. Realistically, 2026, only 3 years. You know, if we put it like right here, that would be really, really surprising. They are bigger than they've ever been. They are like, they have more money than they ever have. But that's not been the bottleneck for Bethesda. The bottleneck for Bethesda has been that for some reason they have massive inefficiencies within their company. And we've seen that with the discussions of the devs, where, for example, we watched on stream GDC Starfield. We saw some of the devs talking about this. No, that's not the one I want. I wanted the actual talk. So Will Shen, who was in a bunch of the marketing materials for Starfield, he's gone. He left. He's at another team. He's doing his other thing. And this is what's so fascinating. This whole talk is basically one gigantic breakdown of things that weren't working quite right at Bethesda. And I mean, they make it out like, as you can see here, I'll let him introduce the slide. Here, I'll let him describe it.
So by the time we ship Starfield, we have grown even more, probably by about the same amount from Fallout 4 to Fallout 76, as you can see here, well over 500 people. But also, we are now working with a large number of external groups, well over a dozen. And these groups are doing everything from effects, lighting, they're working on tools programming, systems programming, pretty much everything. And they have to all be integrated into the development team for the work they are doing. And another part of this is these are external groups, each with their own culture, each with their own leadership, and they are being brought in at various times throughout production, sometimes early on, sometimes to finish it.
Isn't that crazy? Like, isn't that insane? Look how much they'd grown. And yet you wouldn't think, based on the final outcomes and volume of content, the efficiency of fixes and all that, you would not assume that like Starfield had this many devs compared to these other games. It feels like their output has actually dropped since like Fallout 4, and yet they have way more people. Too many cooks? I think it's a lot of cooks, and I think it's also a lot of bureaucracy, and that's kind of what he goes through in this talk. Department over project. He talks about the need for approvals, for layers of double checks from various producers and stuff, and he's like, it's just really inefficient. And this is something that we've also talked about a bajillion times with the CDPR talk, this one,
areas and pieces of content
about how they fixed those problems, because that was the exact same problem they had at CDPR, which led to the drama of Cyberpunk's 2077's launch, where it was just super broken. There were tons of inefficiencies in the dev cycles because they grew before they grew the infrastructure for handling how many people they had. So they redid it and instead focused on cross-functional teams where they had members of each individual department that could individually work on their own sections of the game, or in this case, Phantom Liberty. And it led to greater efficiency. And that's why you play Phantom Liberty, and it feels like it's already such a massive step up from like even the base game in terms of how much they were able to put together and how quickly they were. The big set pieces, the boss fights, everything was totally overhauled. And I think that BGS needs an overhaul like this to get to a level of efficiency that they really need. But that's the thing, is if we're looking at a 2026 release date for Elder Scrolls 6, I think we're dealing with, like, you would have to have seen this overall happen. you would have to see their efficiency go up, because bear in mind, between 2023 and 2024, they released Shattered Space in 24, which was roundly panned by critics and players alike for being short, for lacking significant new content, and for basically just being a slight continuation of the base game with nothing really fresh and a bunch of other stuff that was broken. And they added the rover too. They added a rover. I'll give them credit for that. But they spent a year doing all of that. And obviously, like, it's not their whole team working on that, but you would think if they had an entire year, they could do more. Especially when you remember that after Fallout 4, within a single year, they had put out the Far Harbor expansion, they had put out the Nuka World expansion, all the other little DLC. Back here, they did that's the worst arrow I've ever drawn. Back here, they did way more in terms of volume of content just in that time period compared to what they were able to do after Starfield. Despite back here, the number of people working on those DLCs and expansions was tiny compared to what they have for Starfield now, which is this massive operation. And so I think for Starfield, the key problem is inefficiencies, and that's something reflected in these talks that they give, and the devs that have left have described. They leave, and of course they're friendly and amicable, and they'll talk about the amazing people that are there and their friends because they worked at the place and they like the people there. But you don't do an hour-long talk at GDC where primarily you're outlining like all the frustrations and difficulties you had. Like, there's a lot of material in here outlining all of this, and it's fascinating to look at. Large teams silo and need project-centered goals. Yeah, it's basically a breakdown of why the mismanagement led to inefficiencies. And it's a fascinating talk, but I mean, for Elder Scrolls 6 to come out in 2026, I think they would need to do a major overhaul of how they actually work and how they develop and how they go through these layers of refinement and polish and stuff. And I just don't frankly see it. I think there's a strong chance we see Elder Scrolls 6 like 2027, maybe 2028. I think that's a stretch, but possible. 4 years, I think, is the minimum for Elder Scrolls 6. Maybe we get another trailer or something, around the launch of whatever that new hardware is. But if they could get Elder Scrolls 6 out in 3 years, I don't think it would be the game that we would be hoping for. I think a BGS game in the modern day with their modern teams and everything, a BGS game that's only been cooking for 3 years, I think is very underbaked, in my opinion. I would love to be wrong. I would love for them to blow me away and come out with a monster project and they just figured out all their efficiencies. They're just brimming with, or what was it? Glowing with style and confidence. I would love that. But for them to hit that 2026 release date would mean that they basically turn the game around in 3 years. And if you're looking at the sheer number of developers they have, you'd think maybe that's possible. Because you're like, hey, back in the day, you had Skyrim developed with this many people. So if we have this many people now, right here, so he's gonna show Starfield. If we had this many people with Skyrim, and we just need to do that again, but in the modern day, with this many people, we should be able to do it 3 times as fast, right? Well, unfortunately, that's not how that works, but their efficiency has gone down, or at least stayed the same, if you're being super generous. But it seems like they just do not work anywhere near as dynamically as they used to. So anyway, I appreciate the optimism. And I understand what Juicehead's saying, where he thinks it could make sense if they really wanted to push it for 2026. I just think a Bethesda project in 2026 would be very underbaked. based on what I've seen from their capabilities, but I guess time will tell. It's my babe. My babe is here. Hi, babe. How are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good. We're rocking and rolling.
I almost tore my callus.
Oh.
I ripped it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nikki weightlifts with her ring on.
Yep.
Like what? I was like, I don't do that. I have delicate little princess hands. I'm never gonna do it.
No, it's
But
a
she
good
gets
thing.
these like, yeah. There's your problem. There's your problem. Mikrovalna. That just flowed off my tongue. Thank you for the sub with the prime, my friend. Thank you. Took off the ring for the gym. That's what I'm saying. Just take it off or put on gloves or something. Like you don't have to wear your glove or your ring. You can take it off.
I'm wearing the ring with like the gem in it though. Like this is just the metal band.
Yeah, it's another ring I got her
Yeah, my hair's
to like
funky.
wear without having to wear the nicer, fancier one, but still.
Well, it's also we got married and we chose to do a ring that wasn't a diamond, which I picked and I love, but it also isn't as hard as a diamond.
Yeah, it's a little
so
softer.
I'm worried it's gonna break. So, and I wear it all the time.
Yeah. That's why even like I have a second ring that is not my like wedding band that I'll wear out and about when I'm not like, I don't know. Usually I wear if I'm wearing a black watch and it's not going to be as like I want it to tie together better. But anyway, it's beside the point. But even that one, I could take it off if I'm going to work out. You just don't want something getting into your joint, you know?
You know something funny that just happened?
What?
I was upstairs with Lachlan and we're preparing for nap time. He's newly potty trained and I'm putting brother in a diaper and I hear, "Hey mom, guess what? I peed on my foot." I said, "Why did you do that?" And he goes, "I wanted to see if I could."
Sure could.
So there's that.
Oh, to be a child again, exploring the world. Yeah, based. Yeah, it's a very guy thing to do. I agree. It's a very guy thing to do. Yeah, I was just telling them I'm very hungry.
You're hungry?
So
We made various salads.
yeah, tuna salad. I was telling them I'm gonna go up and get a tuna salad.
Mm-hmm.
I've never peed on my foot. Might have to try it now. That's what I'm saying. See
See if you can.
if you can, because you can. Sure can. You're just gonna come back into chat on Friday, just be like, "Yep,
I did.
sure can,
Can do it.
sure can."
Didn't take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I honestly think if he wonders because I ask him not to do those things, if they're just impossible. And so when he does it, he's like, I can do things that my mom says not to do.
Oh, probably that's a part of it. It's like, can I? I can. Awesome. Let's see. I was gonna see if we wanted to talk about this, but it's basically just another industry analyst saying that they're gonna sell GTA 6 at $100. But I mean, we've talked about that a bajillion times. $100 or more. I wouldn't put it past him. Wouldn't put it past him. Man, the internet will melt. That's whenever they drop that next trailer, man. It's gonna be crazy. That's not a good sign. This is what they're doing though. The industry analysts come out and they say this. They don't have any real inside information. They just say this publicly because these are the analysts. What analysts do is they put price targets on stuff. So they'll look at a company and they'll be like, "Oh, we think Take-Two Interactive, it's technically a $sign in front of it, but we think that they are going to sell at $100 and that will make their company worth," I don't know what their shares are trading for right now, but let's say $150 a share. Okay. $150. But if they don't do that, they won't make as much money. And then their stock is only going to be worth like $130. And that would be a bummer. And it's not just one outlet, or one analyst group, but a bunch of them, hundreds of them all over the world set price targets. And so based on the price target, they say, we think the stock is worth $130. And right now it's trading at 110. So it's a buy. Buy the stock, and that helps the stock price go up. If all the price targets are way higher, it drives the stock price up. So it's sort of like this weird indirect blackmail that happens where they're like, hey, we would love to set a price target high, but you need to sell the game for more. You really do. And if you don't, then we can't put it that high. And so then the company kind of gets pressured into pricing it higher. It's also called market manipulation. Yeah, but it's legal because they're analyzing stuff. Isn't that great? They do this BS to test the waters, also engage people's reactions to it. I've seen a lot of people say they'll still buy it at $100. Yeah, I think that's part of it too. But I think more than anything, like the analysts don't care if people throw a fit. They know everybody's still going to buy it. And like I said, if you're on YouTube looking at comment sections and being like, I don't think people will buy it, I think the internet will melt down. Like Asmon will make a video about it and it'll all blow up. Like, just wait, dude. Look at TikTok comments. If you want to be really depressed at any point in your life, look at TikTok comments about anything. Because it's all these like 12-year-old kids who are like, no, I'd buy it. Honestly, I think it's worth $500 a copy. It's like, bro, I might buy it a few times just to flex. It's like, Yep, that's TikTok for you. Did it for cake. That's a fantastic username. Thank you for the sub with Prime. That's hilarious. That's wonderful. It's going to sell even if the game is 150. I agree, Shadowstorm. And none of us will be happy about it. That's the thing people don't get. People are like, so you want them to price it there? Like, no, I don't want them to do that. I would not like it. I would be sad. But I'm just telling you, it'll still sell gangbusters. But will your mom? That actually, I know it's kind of like a joke. That actually is a major component of this though, because if you're like a grandparent or a parent buying a gift for like your kid, seeing it's $150 might deter them. So those holiday sales might be lower if it starts high, which is why still I think my prediction will come true, which is that they price it at like early access for a week or 2 weeks or something stupid like that. But you have to spend $150 for the deluxe version. And then they launch the $70 or $80 or $90 version. That's the standard price, like 2 weeks later. But if you want early access, you have to pay a ton. So I think they'll step it up, but the big step up will be for early access, and everybody's still going to buy it. So anyway. Sorry for rambling. I said I wasn't going to talk about this, and then I start talking about it, and I go down the rabbit hole. Sorry. I kind of hope they release it with no warning. I kind of do too, dude. Wouldn't that be crazy? If they're like, hey, June 1st, GTA 6, have fun, and they just drop it. That would break the internet, dude. It would be so cool. Like Nikki, I'd call Nikki, be like, hey, babe, gotta cancel that vacation.
Hey, sorry about your birthday.
Yeah, it's GTA 6. I mean, yeah. But I mean, I'll let you play it too if you want to play it with GTA 6. So why not? I'm sure PlayStation's network could handle it, dude. Everything will be breaking. I'm just warning people now. Like, your internet service providers will be plummeting. We had in our neighborhood, like, there was an instant where like everybody came home around the same time. It even happens during the Super Bowl and stuff. But the internet is getting a huge wave of input. People need to download lots of stuff all at the same time. And so internet speeds across the neighborhood plummet because there's only so much bandwidth. There's like the pipes are only so big basically to flow stuff. So it's going to be a problem. And I don't think they're doing early installs, none of that. Tag, thank you for your membership too. Did Nikki like Split Fiction? What were your thoughts on Split Fiction?
Good. Wait, is there supposed to be more than that? No, it was great. Split Fiction's fun. I would say if you're trying to play with a partner that maybe doesn't play a lot of video games, you gotta have some patience. There's some really tricky bits, but I mean, I had a good time. What?
No, I'm listening.
I was bouncing off of you. You're kind of the talker here.
No, I agree. I agree. It's very good, and I like it a lot. It's very good. Thank you, Folly, for the membership. Kermit T. Frog. Dude, one of my favorite things ever. I think I've shown this to Nikki. I don't actually know if I uploaded it to my quick notes. I don't think I did. No. I found on TikTok at one point this guy. He runs a page. Let me see if I can find it, because I know I downloaded at least one of the videos. He goes on TikTok Live, and the page is called Crash Out Kermit. Where is it? Crash Out Kermit. And he literally just posts, like, he does these streams for like 2, 3, 4 hours at a time with a Kermit the Frog puppet on his hand, like dancing to music and stuff. And then he pretends that, like, it's always Kermit with like a bottle of some liquor next to him. I have to look it up directly on TikTok.
Crash Out Kermit. They all know who you're talking
Crash
about.
Out Kermit. Yes, yes. You know exactly what I'm talking about. TikTok. Crash Out Kermit. In case anybody is not familiar. Crash Out Kermit. Kermit the Rizzler. Yeah, this guy. He just does these dances. I can't like play them all because he uses copyrighted music. But he does these streams where he's like dancing and he's like cradling a bottle of Jameson or something. Holding a picture of Miss Piggy like they broke up or something. And then if you want him to keep dancing, you have to send in like, you know, whatever the equivalent of a TikTok super chat is, like a $50 gift or something. And then he starts dancing again. And he'll just do this like for hours. My Valentine's Day. Like, he just goes crazy, dude. Like, it's my favorite thing ever. I will be working on stuff and I will just pull this up and see what Kermit's doing and just keep it on in the background. He puts on the emo hair. Like, it's so freaking good, dude. It's one of my favorite things ever. The other guy I found, and this one I don't think you'll know about. I showed Nikki this, but let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. It's a guy called the Copper God. I'm going to have to hold this up like a boomer. It's literally a guy that wraps himself in copper. This came up on TikTok Live at one point. He wraps himself in copper wire, and he has like a piece of tin foil or paper on the table in front of him. And he just kind of like whacks at the air with his hand, creating like air that moves the paper. And he thinks he has magical powers because of the copper he's holding on his body. Come on, focus. Come on. Come on. There you go. So all the time, like while people are doing this and in the comments, they're like, bro, it's air. And he's like, no, man, you just got to believe in yourself. You just got to believe in the power that comes with the copper. It's like, no, it's air. It's definitely air, dude. It's pretty funny. So anyway, you can find all sorts of crazy stuff on TikTok if you scroll hard enough, and you'll find these people with like 5 viewers who are just doing the most insane stuff, and it's thoroughly entertaining. Yeah, the literal copper Jedi. Yeah. Luke, please touch grass as well. Yeah, I probably should. Probably should. Yeah.
It's time.
Yeah, bro's in the shower thinking he can shoot water out of his fingers. It's like, yeah, no, yeah, you just hold your hands out like this beneath your, you know, pointed down, and the water just comes out of you because you're bending the water. It's like, no, dude, it's running down your arm. No, dude, it's magic. It's magic. Nikki needs her own chair. Yeah, I know. I think she's telling me I need to go up and eat. So I will call it there, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging. Thank you so much for being wonderful. We'll be back on Friday, rocking and rolling, and with plenty of stuff to talk about. Maybe we'll revisit Crash Out Kermit and the Copper King. Maybe we'll circle back to that. No Jor today. No, he had something surprise him from the shadows, so he's busy. But until next time, my friends, much love. Why do I have 2 keyboards? Because one's for the streaming PC and then one is for the gaming PC. I know it looks silly, but it gets the job done. Until next time, my friends, much love. I'll see you guys soon. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.